See how advertising on Brittney Richardson can boost your business. Commercial advertising on one of Brittney's shows is both affordable and offers you the opportunity to deliver a simple yet powerful message to a targeted group of consumers that may be actually interested in your product or service. What are you waiting for? Visit www.brittneyrichandson.com/advertise. Once again, that's brittneyrichandson.com/advertise.
Something stellar has arrived to the trucking industry. Introducing the only headset you'll ever need. The Pluto Duo has 60 hours of talk time, 900 hours of standby time, and 99% noise canceling ability. We specialize in active noise cancellation headphones for the trucking industry. We have the professional driver covered. Visit us today at www.stellaraelectronic.com. That's stellaraelectronic.com. Grand Marathon Trucking is here for all fleet and owner operators. As we all adjust during COVID-19, Grand Marathon Trucking is providing you with new innovative ways to generate revenue during this pandemic. Follow Grand Marathon Trucking on Facebook and Instagram. Click the link in their bio. Start your adjustment with 7 secrets to trucking contracts or 100 side hustles for truck drivers. Free. Start making more money and experiencing financial freedom in your trucking business. Welcome to Trucker Talk Live, where we hear from you, the hard-working men and women of the highway. Now, here's your host, Brittney Richardson.
Hey guys, welcome to Trucker Talk Live. I cannot tell you how excited I am to finally be live again. We had some delays a little over a week ago and had to cancel the show, and I was so disappointed. But first, before we get into the show, which we have an exciting guest to talk to tonight who has a lot of experience in the trucking industry, but before that, we have a headset to give away. I did not forget about you guys, those that shared the videos on the last live stream. Some lucky winner is going to get a Stellar Pluto Duo headset, which has up to 32 hours of talk time and 500 hours of standby time. I actually think it's more than that on the Duo, I'm pretty sure. Oh, there you go. Yes. Up to 60 hours of talk time and up to 900 hours of standby time. This is the one we're giving away. So we're going to spin the wheel real quick. If I can cue up the music here. Okay, let's go to the screen share. Display capture. There we go. We almost lost the music there. Let's spin the wheel and see who wins this Pluto Duo. Looks like Roger Leonard. Roger Leonard, you have won the Pluto Duo headset. So huge congratulations to Roger. I will be contacting you shortly and get you that headset. Now if I can figure out how to turn off the music. There we go. There we go, guys. I am still learning this open broadcasting software, and I got to tell you, it's been a challenge. It's been a chore. I've been told we couldn't do it, but we're doing it. So I'm stoked. I am super stoked right now. So tonight, without further ado, I want to bring on the line Mark Harter, who has been in the trucking industry a long time. He has such a long pedigree. I just want to go ahead and welcome you on, Mark. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you do?
Hey, Brittney, can you hear me all right?
I can.
All right, great. Hey, first of all, I just want to thank you for having me on your show tonight. It's quite the honor, so I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. For those that don't know, I actually met Mark in an interview I was doing with him for the Fueling Our Heroes project with Sadie. So we got to talking. He's the coolest guy and has so much experience in the trucking industry. So
Yeah, thanks to our mutual friend there, Jennifer at Volvo Trucks. We owe her big time, so I have to buy her dinner or drink or something next time I see her.
Definitely. Jennifer's awesome.
What's on your mind tonight? We can talk about a little about everything. I mean, I know you said we had gone over a few things, and from time I was a kid, this has been my passion, are trucks. I mean, from the time I was a little kid growing up, I mean, we were going through some photography for you. I was going through with my mother and came across some pictures of me, when I was about 5 years old, 2 years old, behind the wheel of some trucks when we were moving when I was younger. And, in some of the kindergarten notes she had, and the teacher asked the students what they want to be when they grow up. And there was a fill in the blank. And, of course, I said I wanted to be a truck driver. And that's pretty much how I've lived my life. I want to be a truck driver, and I'm proud to say I did it for many, many years and ran trucks as well and ran fleets. And unfortunately, now I'm not able to drive a car anymore, so due to my vision impairment. But doesn't stop me from still being around them and enjoying them.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that struck me talking to you in our interview and getting to talk afterwards was how you have memorized like the truck specs. Like you were asking about specs on the truck that I had no clue of. And it honestly made me look like a novice. I'm just like, you know what? I just like the Volvo. I like how it feels. It's got space. I don't know what the distance between the drive tires are or anything else. But I was so impressed with your knowledge on the technical side.
Well, for me, it's always been about the trucks. I mean, the trucking industry is kind of screwed up at times, whether it's politically or from hours of service standpoint and shippers and receivers and all the stuff in between. And, and to me, always just going on the road was just always the enjoyment, just being able to drive them and all the polished aluminum, chicken lights, you name it. And I love them. I'll jokingly tell people all day long, I hate the trucking industry, but love the trucks, because it can be kind of screwed up at times. And to me, whether it's Caterpillar or Cummins under the hood or Detroit Diesel or, a Volvo or it's got a Volvo power plant or whatever, a PACCAR and a Kenworth or a Peterbilt, that's all part of it. And that's what makes it enjoyable. And, and whether it's whether you got big high horsepower or it's more streamlined, it's something that makes every truck unique. And, your truck is unique for, it's a true driver's truck, and your Volvo is. And some people really love them. Some people don't care for them as much. I mean, wouldn't be my truck of choice. If I was going on the highway, I'd prefer, a big W900L Kenworth and about 300 inches or so on the wheelbase and a little 60-inch flat top sleeper. And that's, to me, that's cool going on the highway, right?
Mm-hmm. I gotta say, even that old truck, what was that old truck that you were in at 5 years old? I'm pulling it up on the screen now. That cabover? What
it's an International 4070 Transtar, actually, I'm in. That's probably late 70s right there. I'm pretty sure I can't tell if it's a 4070B Transtar or if it's a 4070 Transtar. There's a difference in those. International changed the truck at a serious point. They raised it up to take larger horsepower engines at some point from the original 4070 Transtar. They made it a 4070B Transtar 2. And I guess from what I could see the front pictures that I have of the truck, I think it's a 4070 Transtars, which would make it probably mid-70s, I believe. So.
Oh, wow. So back then, they didn't even have power steering on those trucks, right?
A lot of them didn't, no. I couldn't even reach the pedals in that truck at 5.5 years old. So, yeah. But no, most of them didn't have power steering. They were pretty basic trucks still, even back at the late 70s and early 80s, and really didn't start to see a lot of the amenities that are commonplace now in a lot of the trucks, until the early 80s. You saw more in a lot of the higher end rigs, like the big Peterbilt 359s and, W900A model Kenworths at that time. They were typically more owner operator spec trucks versus, say, more fleet truck like that would be, used in a fleet service. So, you had a big difference for variation in trucks at that point. Nowadays the fleets cater to the truck drivers, so they're more inept to or more able to. They purchase rigs that drivers want to drive, and not just a piece of equipment to get the freight up and down the highway.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to get in one of those old trucks. Like one of these days at a truck show or something, I have got to see the inside. I've seen the exterior of them, but I've never been in one. So you've always had an interest in trucks from an extremely young age. You said age 2, you think your mom found a picture of?
Y- Yeah, it's actually, she's got a picture of me. Actually, found it. She was showing me today before we got on the phone here. And this picture of me, I was about H2 behind the wheel of a Atlas Van Lines another international Transtar actually. And I even have sitting here in my bedroom, I have my first toy truck. It's a big metal Ertl um, toy truck. It's a big international, actually, Transtar. It's in Sears and Roebuck Company colors, the little green they ran back in the 70s and 80s. And that was my first toy truck. My dad brought it home for me from work. I know when I was a little kid, and I still have it to this day. So
Cool. That is so cool. So you said you sent me some information on you, and one thing that I was really impressed by is you said it was at age 12 that you built a wind tunnel, and it kind of progressed into like your interest in trucks continued to progress until you got into the trucking industry. Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about the wind tunnel?
yeah, okay, sure. Well, before that, I mean, I always liked trucks, and when I was family, we were kids, we'd go up and on the highway, and I would keep actually like a raw, a cruel spreadsheet of all the trucks I saw. I'd make an X for a Mack or an X for a Kenworth or a Freightliner or whatever, and then as I got a little older, I started getting the trucking magazines and so forth, reading the brochures, and I remember the first time I saw a Kenworth T600A, and it's actually the first truck I ever photographed. I was just blown away by. It was just something completely different. This is back in about 1986, 87, and to this day I still have a obsession / love affair with those trucks, that particular model. But yeah, back when I had to do a science fair project when I was in grade school, then into high school, and so at the time, mentioning the T600A with the aerodynamics, and I was kind of coming into within the trucking industry, the aerodynamics were getting important, for fuel efficiency, and the T600A led the way, and then Freightliner followed with the FL D120s, and then international with the 9400s and other slope nose models from other manufacturers as well, and Mack with their CH600 initially too. So initially, I built a smoke tunnel back when I was in grade school. I think it was 8th grade, and I had a test section, and then we had a big kind of jar, I guess it was, or a coffee can that we had drilled holes into, pulled lines through it, and then I dropped our ice in the coffee can and in warm water, and then that would produce the dry ice fume, and then we used a vacuum cleaner at the other end of the test section to pull the dry smoke over the truck, so you kind of see how the air flowed over a 1/32 scale model truck. And this eventually progressed, though. It got much bigger than just the basic smoke tunnel. When I was in high school, after I got into high school in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I'm from, the project went from a smoke tunnel to I wanted to figure out how to figure out the actual drag coefficient of a tractor trailer. So I started with Bernoulli's principle, and if you're not familiar with what Bernoulli's principle is, it's, I have to refresh my memory here now because it's been so long as I thought about this. Basically, you're bringing in the air at a constant speed, slower, and then you're progressively speeding it up into the slower test section. It's bringing it at a constant speed, and you're constantly speeding it up. So I forget how the actual terms I use. It's been so long ago now. Then we took all the constants in the test section of the test section for where the trucks were at, whether it be the sled it was on, the spring rates, the air flowing through there, and then the only variable then that we were able to variable is different than was the truck itself. We kept the trailer constant, so I think it was different than was the tractor. The actual truck itself, whether there was a Kenworth, K100E cabover hooked at the point, or it was a T600A or something more aerodynamic. And while I was working on this, I ran into a lot of stumbling blocks. And so I actually had contacted Kenworth, of all people, and they found out what I was doing, and they were pretty impressed. And so they actually put me in contact with Garrick Hugh at the time, who was one of their chief head engineers, and he was actually responsible for one of the guys who did for designing the Kenworth T600A. And him and I together, he helped me put together a 3-page equation to figure out the drag coefficient of a tractor trailer. And needless to say, they were pretty impressed and pretty blown away. I was actually getting some of the numbers I was getting were pretty close to what they were spending in their multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art facilities. And here I was, me and my dad built this wind tunnel in our garage, based off drawings and things I'd read about, and prayed it worked. And needless to say, it did. And I won my high school science fair. Went to the Central Indiana Regional Science Fair, won all that, competed at the Indiana State Science Fair, and then went to the 1993 International Science and Engineering Fair, Science Engineering Fair which was held in Nashville, Tennessee that year. And I didn't win or place. There were kids there that were like way much smarter than me, split in the atom. I was just some kid who liked trucks, and I happened to win it. Happened to win because I had a passion for them, and whereas engineering wasn't really my end goal. Although, I remember Kenworth at the time, as you said, hey, if you go to school to get an engineering degree, we'll have a job here waiting for you. And I kind of look back and go, man, that was quite the offer. I probably should have done that. And instead, I didn't really want to design them. I didn't want to play. I didn't want to work with them that way. I wanted to play with them. I wanted to drive them, and that's kind of how it went. And after high school, I worked for Central Indiana Mack Trucks for a while, and did some other things. And then eventually, when I got my CDL, and I went to work, and never looked back. So
that is so cool. I had a similar experience, just in a different category. It took me a long time before I got into truck driving. I've been driving about 8.5 years now, but at a young age, I was always fascinated, and I was familiar with Bernoulli's principle with the wind tunnel because I had a fascination in meteorology, and I was so close to going to college and becoming a meteorologist. But my thing was, it's like, I'm fascinated by it, but I wanted to be out there experiencing the weather, right? I didn't want to be stuck in some office and, just behind the scenes doing tech stuff. And so, yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I get it. It's, it's funny because actually I read an article after Neil Armstrong passed away, and the author, I think it was down in Titusville, Florida, Cape Canaveral, somewhere down there. I written the article, and they were talking about when he was a kid, he had a wind tunnel, and he would test the wings of an airplane, and he had his own wind tunnel, I guess at his house or whatever. And the author wrote something about he's probably the only kid ever his age to have a full blown wind tunnel, and not crazy enough to do this. And I actually saw the article, and I wrote the author of that article an email and said, he's not the only one. I said I did the same thing, but with with tractor trailers, and so he was pretty impressed with that. It was kind of fun to know that I got something in common with Neil Armstrong. We were both crazy as kids, right? So only difference was he walked on the moon. I just went back and forth across the United States a few times. So,
But it seems like you had a lot of fun doing it. So is there something that sparked your interest into trucks in the beginning at a young age, or do you just always remember being attracted to trucks?
I don't really remember like a singular particular moment. I just, I was just fascinated by them. I don't really ever, I don't remember ever, one particular moment going, hey, I want to do that. I just, as a kid, I just remember I loved it since the time I was a little kid, and it's always been my passion. It's been trucks, and whether it's been collecting models or building them, owning them, driving them, the wind tunnel, et cetera. It's just, I've always liked to be involved in it some way or another. And, and I think you brought up the picture of the wind tunnel there, and there's a Kenworth T600 actually in the test section there, and I still actually have that particular model. It's sitting here in a box, actually. And the neat part about that, at the time I did that, we were doing the wind tunnel project back in the early 1990s. That truck had I had modified it with the roof line and extended fairings and things like that to make it, I wanted to show what could be done a little bit more efficiently. Now it's funny because, 30 years later, you're seeing a lot of that, and more so on the trucks going on the highways nowadays with the trailer aerodynamics and so forth, not just the tractor. And so it's pretty neat how far it's come. And I know when you and I were talking when we did your interview, and if your readers don't know about our website, I run with my friend Duncan Putman, and there's a big pink Volvo over there, and I'm pretty impressed when we were talking about the mileage you're getting, the kind of miles per gallon you're getting out of your truck. That was unheard of, 20 years ago. I mean, I had a C15 550 Caterpillar and a T2000, and I was lucky to get 4 to 5 miles a gallon out of on a good day. So.
Yeah, it's amazing how far the fuel economy's come on these trucks. I couldn't believe it when I was looking and, actually verifying that once I fueled up, because those digital estimators, they can always be off a little bit, but I was totally shocked to get between like 7.5, 8.5 to the gallon on that Volvo, the VNL 860, and that's like 400 something horsepower. I think
you got what, B13 425 HP. I think you got the 1750 high torque package on your engine. So,
Yep.
You got a highway cruiser. You got the I-shift automated transmission with 264 Rens, 22.5 low pro rubber. Your truck's built for it's a highway cruiser. It's built for efficiency.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And the luxury of the inside of that Volvo. I'm the Volvo person. If you guys can't tell, he's the Kenworth person.
She's talking to a Kenworth guy, so hey, it's all right. We can get along. We can coexist.
We can have a friendly rivalry on the subject.
That's right. I'm gonna take you. You and I we're gonna go to truck shows today. So we're gonna shoot some video, and you and I talked about this. We're gonna do some fun stuff. I'm gonna get you around the old trucks, and we're gonna have a little fun and get Brittney and some Kenworth and old Peterbilts and Max, and you'll be impressed with some of the stuff, I think.
I would love it. I'm looking forward to that so much. So why don't you tell us about your first trucking job and how you actually got your CDL and so forth?
Oh, sure. Well, let's get to getting back to the kind of on that. Well, we can talk about this, I guess, too. I mentioned the T600A, and I just got to throw this out there. That truck is my unicorn. It's the one I've wanted my entire life, either to drive or to own, and I've never done either. I've never owned one, never driven one, and it's eluded me my entire life. And I've had big cabover Kenworths and other trucks, whatever, and Marmons, and you name it. I've had some of the other trucks, but the T600A has been the one that's eluded me my entire life. And one of the things that was attractive to me back in the day, I remember back in the late 80s, TMC Transportation at the time had a big fleet of their big black, T600As, and they had 16-inch flat top sleepers on them, and they were pretty. And but I never went to work for them, and never owned one, and just for some reason it just eluded me. So when I got my CDL, in the late 1990s. I went and got my learner's permit on my own, started doing everything on my own, and I found out that because I was gonna, nobody was gonna hire me if I didn't go to a truck driving school. So actually, I got my I took my CDL test. I actually showed up with a friend of mine in a 1972 Peterbilt. How cool is that, right? And with a covered wagon. And I remember the guy at the test center in Indianapolis says, "You better pass the pre-trip because I want to go for a ride in this thing." Okay. And a friend of mine had taught me how to drive, proficiently. And so we left the test center, and we pulled out. And all of a sudden, I'm grabbing gears going through the intersection, and I started going on the highway and floating the gears without using the clutch. And the instructor, the testing guy says, "We'll have to fail you." And I said, "Wake up! What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, you can't shift." I didn't know you could. I wasn't paying attention. Not supposed to shift going through an intersection. And then he didn't like the fact I wasn't using the clutch in the truck. So that was kind of disappointing. So then I said, okay, well, I got talking to some companies, and they pretty much weren't going to hire me if I didn't go to a truck driving school. So I went to a truck driving school for 2 weeks, and they gave me a CDL, and I remember the instructors are going, "Why are you even here?" And and I kind of explained my story over and over to them. And after that, I also had a affinity for flatbeds. I like pulling, like flatbeds. I liked the way they looked. I liked the idea of a covered wagon. I had friends who hauled steel at the time, and so I wanted to go steel hauling. And I was kind of picky about. I wasn't going to drive any truck, and I wasn't going to work for any company. So I kind of did I didn't go to work for somebody right away. There was plenty of companies at the truck driving school that was, in the late 1990s, that were trying to recruit people out of there, and I just pretty much turned everybody down. I wanted to make my own decision and not have somebody sell me. So I did my homework, and I found a carrier out of the Pittsburgh area, out of Monaca, Pennsylvania, called PGT. And they had nice equipment at the time, internationals and pulled Rettenauers and utility flatbeds and so forth. And I called them up and went to work for them, and they taught me how to haul steel and pull flatbeds. And met one of my longtime friends, Dave Dudo, there. And to this day, he's one of my best friends still, and taught me load securement. And that's one thing I'm very, very strict on, is load securement. I love, proud to say I can strap a 50,000-pound steel coil down and, move it 500 miles and, do it safely for years. And one thing too, I was always proud of my trucks. I always kept a clean truck, whether it was my truck or company truck. For example, I think you're putting up some pictures of my internationals on the screen here at the moment when I was at PGT, and I think unit number 9988 was the second truck I had when I was there, the second time I was actually at the company. And interesting fun fact about that truck, when I got it, it was nowhere near what it looked like. It was far from a beauty queen, and not that it's not that it was a show truck to begin with, but I had all the lettering redone with chrome around the edges of the PGT and the 9988 on the hood, and actually every wheel on that truck was spun aluminum. They weren't polished. So on the weekend, I would bring that truck home and I knocked off all the wheels, and I sanded them and buffed them all out to be polished. And then I added other, stainless steel chrome accessories and things like that to the truck, and just to personalize a little bit. And everybody always would give me a hard time. I buffed and sanded the fuel tanks and out and everything like that. And everybody give me a hard time and say, it's just a company truck. Why are you doing that? And well, you know why? It was my truck. It was my ride. And I wasn't everybody, truck drivers kind of had a bad name at that point. And, I wasn't a dirtbag, and I was proud of what I did for a living, proud of what I drove for a living. I was proud of working in the trucking industry. I was proud to be a truck driver. And that not only that truck was, if I had a dirty truck, that was a reflection of the driver. I wasn't a dirty driver. Didn't like dirty trucks. But that was a reflection of the company I worked for, and me as a driver, as well as the trucking industry as a whole. I was trying to be somebody who, promoted a positive image. So when that little kid came by me in his family's car, and he looked up at me and pulled his hand for me to blow the horn, that I looked at that kid and said, that was me, 20 some years ago, and so it was just some things like that were always just going through my head and was important to me.
That is so cool. I just got that last week again. It seems like once a week I'll get that. There will be some kid or a group of kids in the back seat doing the honk signal, and it touches my heart every time, because I think of the same thing. It's like, I remember when I was that age and I would do that. I was always fascinated by the big trucks passing us, even though that wasn't the first thought of like what to do in life. But then again, the culture was kind of different back then. Most women didn't think that was an option for them. Same as law enforcement.
Yeah, the trucking's been through some strange times over the years. It's changed a lot. In 1980, after they deregulated the industry, and then you had some of these super carriers come about. We had the Swifts and the Schneiders and Warner Enterprises, companies like that. And trucking changed, and you saw movies like Smoking the Bandit with Snowman and the Bandit and Convoy, and later on with BJ and the Bear on television, and it was people were proud to be truckers back then, and then throughout somewhere along the way it went all downhill, and it seems like recently though. With all this COVID-19 issue, that truckers started getting respect again, and I've been hearing on different talk radio I listen to, and they've been thanking truckers for doing their part and keeping the shelves stocked while people are staying at home, and so hey, I'm proud to I was proud to support, like I said, you and Sadie, what you guys were doing, because nobody ever, I don't think I've ever thanked me when I was going down the highway, and so it made me feel good to hear that when other people were noticing it who were not involved in the trucking industry.
We were so honored to be able to be out there doing that, because we could tell. I mean, I've been a driver for 8.5 years, and I can count on one hand how many times somebody's thanked me for what I do. And I was so happy to be a part of thanking other drivers and adding to those numbers. Like, there were so many shocked faces when they see us. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, why are you doing this
I have a
for
question.
us?
One thing when I was on the phone with you, and when you and Sadie and I were talking, and I didn't touch on in my article with you guys, and I don't think Jennifer had mentioned anything on it. But I'm going to reverse this here. I'm going to quiz you a little bit. But what was it like pulling into a travel center or a truck stop or wherever you guys were delivering these meals to, and opening the trailer up and putting a sign out there and walking around knocking on doors? And what kind of reactions were you guys getting? I mean, had to be a little. I mean, I couldn't even imagine doing that.
Well, when we set up behind the truck, the reactions, of course, we had a sign that said free food for truck drivers, fueling our heroes. So it was at first a look of shock when they drove by, like, really? What is this? And then they would come by and see us and be so appreciative. But so that was a little more comfortable. But on the rainy days, we were actually approaching these trucks and knocking on doors. If the curtains were open, that is. We tried not to bother somebody if they're sleeping. But it was kind of a scary feeling, because, you're walking up to an unknown truck and you don't know who's inside, what their reaction's going to be. And most of the time they figured that it's like they assumed that we were there to either as working girls, or we were there to sell something, which is kind of one and the same, I guess. But so it was kind of awkward, I guess. It was really awkward and uncomfortable approaching the trucks, but we didn't want to let the rain stop us. And once they realized we have nothing to sell, the reactions were so heartwarming.
No, that's awesome. I couldn't even imagine, sitting in a rest area and having someone come up, knock on the door, and a pretty woman come knock on the door and say, "What would you like to eat?"
It was a look of shock and then appreciation, let me tell you.
I can only imagine. I usually if somebody knocked on my door in the middle of the night, I was parked somewhere, I usually knew it wasn't good. So, but as I'm sure, you've probably heard from other drivers. So yes.
And myself, I know that well. Thankfully, Jordan's been with me most of the time that the door got knocked on. We had it knocked on in, I almost said Pontoon Beach. It wasn't Pontoon Beach, Illinois. It was the Belleville area, I think, for, what's that bypass? It's the bypass around St. Louis on the Illinois side. There's a Flying J, and normally
that's
really
what
cool
is that?
place.
That's what's that, 255?
Yes, 255.
Yeah.
Okay, normally it's a great place, so I'm not like downing Flying J. Every time we've stopped there, it's been nice. But this one night at about midnight, we're crawling in bed, and there's a knock at the door, and Jordan's like, "I'll get it." Goes to the door, and there's this guy standing there, like pretty stout guy, and he looked totally shocked to see Jordan pop out of a pink truck, right? But when he saw Jordan's size, he was like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I was just looking for food, do you have any food to spare," type of thing. But I'm just thinking, what if I was alone,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if we should probably talk about all this, but I remember the first time I ever got, in the middle of the night, I had loaded I was a PGT, I had loaded out of AK Steel down in Rockport, Indiana, and I was running with a friend of mine, his name was Jim Ferner, and we were both headed to Milford, Connecticut. We were going to Eagle Steel up there, I remember, and he was ahead of me a good ways, probably a couple hours, so I loaded after he did. And so I'll meet you up at the Second Brothers truck stop on 95 there in Milford. Old truck stop. I don't know if I'm still there or not. And I remember I come pulling in there late at night. There was a spot next to him, and he was asleep, and I just pulled in and went to bed because we had to get up in the morning and go unload. It was a couple hours. So I crawled in to sleep, and I went to bed. I was tired after driving all day. And a couple hours later, I heard this knocking on my door, my window. And I thought, I'll climb out of sleep. I figured it's Jim wanting something, maybe we got to go over this time to get up and go over the mill and unload. No, there's this woman standing beside my sleeper, and she says, for $50, we can have a lot of fun. I said, honey, I don't need $50 that bad. I told her, get off my fuel tanks and go away.
That is hilarious. And even that culture's changed so much. I'm hearing from a lot of drivers. Well, for one, I don't see them out. I used to see them out when I started in 2012. Every once in a while, you would get to a truck stop, and there'd be a woman or two walking around truck to truck, and you knew what was going on. Hell, at one point, there was a truck stop I won't say the name of, but it's on its Google listing. It said lot lizards and what did it say? It said loiterers and lot lizards or something right after the truck stop name on the reviews. So
nice. Well,
you don't see them anymore.
Hey, right. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's one of the downside. It's one of the things that gives trucking a bad name and truck drivers. And I've met a lot of really, really great truck drivers out there over the years. A lot of, I have friends and family. Listen, I got to give a shout out to my friend, the one and only, the legendary Indiana Roadrunner, Tim Begley from Dale, Indiana. And my friend Anthony Russo up in Danbury, Connecticut. There's a lot of great truck drivers I've met over the years, whether they've had show trucks or just daily runners. And then I met truck drivers I wouldn't want to associate with, it's just like any industry, any friends you have, it's who you are and how you present yourself. And I tried to always do that and be a positive role model for the industry itself. I didn't always play by the rules when I was driving because, we didn't have electronic logbooks back then. And, if I had to go, I went. I didn't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, the culture's definitely shifted quite a bit. Well, we need to take a really quick commercial break because I can tell you this natural calm has already moved through me. So I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to hit a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about horseless carriage, if you're open to talking about that, and then what happened with your eyes and why you no longer drive. So we will be right back, guys.
See how advertising on Brittney Richardson can boost your business. Commercial advertising on one of Brittney's shows is both affordable and offers you the opportunity to deliver a simple yet powerful message to a targeted group of consumers that may be actually interested in your product or service. What are you waiting for? Visit www.brittneyrichardson.com/advertise. Once again, that's brittneyrichardson.com/advertise.
Something stellar has arrived to the trucking industry. Introducing the only headset you'll ever need. The Pluto Duo has 60 hours of talk time, 900 hours of standby time, and 99% noise canceling ability. We specialize in active noise cancellation headphones for the trucking industry. We have the professional driver covered. Visit us today at www.stellaraelectronic.com. That's stellaraelectronic.com. Grand Marathon Trucking is here for all fleet and owner operators. As we all adjust during COVID-19, Grand Marathon Trucking is providing you with new innovative ways to generate revenue during this pandemic. Follow Grand Marathon Trucking on Facebook and Instagram. Click the link in their bio. Start your adjustment with 7 secrets to trucking contracts or 100 side hustles for truck drivers. Free. Start making more money and experiencing financial freedom in your trucking business.
Welcome back, guys. Let me find my button. Just to let you guys know, like most of the time, shows like this have a whole tech crew, like an entire tech crew to do all of this stuff, and I'm doing it myself with many buttons that I had to figure out. So we are back on with Mark Harter, and he's been telling us our story. He currently does not drive a truck. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Something happened with his eyesight, and anyway, he has been fascinated by trucks since age 2, or really since he can remember. So why don't you tell us about what was it? Horseless Carriage. Was that your second trucking company, or was that your first?
No, I went to work after I left PGT. I got my dream job offer working for Horseless Carriage. I'd been at PGT and I was perfectly happy. I liked working at PGT. It was a good company. I liked hauling steel but growing up I read all the magazines. I was a member of the American Truck Historical Society, and Horseless Carriage always advertised on the back page of the Wheels of Time magazine. And I'd see the big fancy paint and the Ferraris hanging off the back, and I said, man, I want to do that. And I had the opportunity to meet Dave Sweetman, became a pretty good friend of mine. To this day, he's still a friend, somebody I really admire in the truck industry, really look up to. Great guy. And he introduced me to Frank Malatesta, who owned Horseless Carriage. And Frank seemed to like me, and out of the blue one day, he says, I was at a truck show, and he says, why don't you come to work for me? And so that's how it started. And I got my, kind of my dream job working at Horseless Carriage for a while. And had a big Kenworth K100E, 112-inch flat top, at a 3406-speed Caterpillar, 13-speed, 24.5 low pro rubber, pulled a 53-foot trailer. I can't remember the actual, I think it was a Dorsey or Kentucky or what it was, but I had a couple different trailers when I was there. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I got all cars for new Ferraris to the dealers, celebrities. Got to go to truck show, go to different car shows. I know it's nice to put up one picture of me. Actually, I'm in the 550 Maranello Barchetta. There's actually a cool story of that. It's the red open air roadster that you had up there initially. I'm bringing that. A photograph was taken in January of 2000, and Ferrari introduced the 550 Maranello Barchetta at the end of the run, the 550 run, the Barchetta being an open-air roadster. And that was pretty neat because they were only building 448 of them. At the time the photograph was taken, the car carrier carried serial number 002 of 448 ever to be built. At the time the picture was taken, it was the only one in the North America, and from what I knew was only one of two in the world. And I'd taken it to Detroit, and along with several other Ferraris, and got to go there for hang out at the Detroit Auto Show for the event, and take it there and bring it back. And it was pretty special. You got all neat stuff like that, F50s and F40s, some of these supercars that are really rare and exotic, not your biggest to see or let alone drive, get behind the wheel of. They're pretty neat, and I did that for several years and really enjoyed it, really loved it. But I really didn't like running all over the God's green earth, and I kind of like to stay in the Midwest and running, like, say, between Chicago and Pittsburgh, and then going back to PGT after a few years. And I've been proud to say I was there, and met a lot of great people working there. And it's a tough place to work at. They take a lot of pride in the equipment, and I always tell people see my trailer, and the wood floors and the trailer were cleaner and shinier than most people's in their houses, and that's the way we had to present ourselves, first class all the way, 100%. And but that's the way I trucked anyway, whether it was I was pulling flatbeds and hauling steel, or I was hauling $250,000 Ferraris, so.
I was always the same way with whatever truck I had, whether it's just some old beat up truck in sorry shape or, company truck or whatever. And I used to do switch seating quite a bit. And I always hated how I would get the truck clean. I mean, it was like immaculate on the inside because I always took pride in presenting myself well and my truck well, because it is a representation of you and your company. And so that's always been my belief. But then I would get so frustrated when I would come back after the day shift got out of it and it would be trashed. I have so many old videos of like trash on the floor and candy bars smeared on the dash. It was so bad.
You're not the first person I've heard things like that from. So, I feel your pain. I thank God I've never had to slip seat. Say that 5 times fast. Any trucks? I've been very fortunate. All of my trucks have owned them, or I've been assigned units. So, the only time I ever drove somebody else's truck was after I got out of the truck full time. I was running the fleet, and I would haul loads every once in a while. I would take one of their driver's truck to do that, but. So yeah, no, I feel your pain when it comes to the slip seating and people not taking care of the equipment. And I don't know, the truck was my home, and I wasn't, I took care of, kept it, neat and clean and organized as best I could, and inside and out. And so if to me, if somebody was, I always was amazed. You pull up on a fuel island and there's some dirty truck next to you, and they open the door, and there's trash falling out of the door when they open it up. And I'm going, really? How can you live like that? So.
Exactly. I don't know. It makes me wonder what their homes look like because some of these trucks
exactly
are
right.
so bad. They were so bad.
Well, you mentioned your truck, your pink Volvo. We gotta. You mentioned to me when we were earlier this week when you and I were talking. We gotta get. I gotta show you how to polish. I gotta show you how to clean. We're gonna take that pink Volvo to a truck show. We're gonna. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I think it'd probably be pretty cool looking in the lineup there. Just don't tell anybody that I'm helping Brittney show a Volvo, so you're going to get all the credit for that. I'm just going to be the guy showing you how to do stuff.
That'd be awesome. We'll have to get some video of that. That would be fun. I have never done like the polish, and honestly, the things that I should be doing for that truck, I admit I haven't. So I would love to learn all of the ins and outs.
Well, I will get a hold of my friend Roger Feynman at California Customs. I'm going to plug his products on your show here right now. That's all right with you?
Go for it.
Roger owns California Customs. Roger is his purple polish, aluminum polish, is the best. And I'll tell you the story of this, right? So, I was at Horseless Carriage, and David Sweetman. I had my truck. I was sitting there at the sitting at the shop, and I had nothing going on. I think I was there for the weekend or something. I don't know what I was doing. And I had the truck pulled up, and I was polishing away on the aluminum wheels and fuel tanks and stuff. And Sweetman walks up to me, and he says, "What are you using to polish there?" And I gave him the bottle, and he walked over and threw it away. walked to his truck, grabbed a bottle of California Customs Purple out of his truck, grabbed the bottle of other stuff I was using, threw it away, and showed me how, and says, "This is the only stuff you're going to be using, and you need to be using." And I tell you what, once he showed me how to polish with California Customs, I was sold. And to this day, I preach that polish. I advertise for Roger on our website, and there's nothing better than Roger's his products, whether it's his aluminum polish or his other protective polishes. Those California Customs is the best. That's other guys, they make other stuff, they use other products, and if they're happy with it, great, use it. This is what I prefer, and this is what I love, and Roger's always been good to me, and I've met him at the truck so many times. We're friends to this day, and I can pick up the phone and call him right now and say, "Hey, can I get some California Customs to Brittney in pink?" And he'd say, "Sure." So
that would be awesome. I would definitely try it.
All right, well, you're on then. I will do that. I'll have to call Roger next week and see if I can't get him some samples sent out to you at least, and we'll get that Volvo of yours polished up so it's looking pretty.
Yeah, let him know if it works good, and I'm sure it does. Everybody's gonna know about it because
are your Alcoas on there? Are they polished, or are they Durabrites?
The what now? The
rims? Are the aluminum wheels Durabrite aluminum wheels, or are they regular polished aluminum wheels?
I think they're
the
just
Durabrites
polished.
Will hold their polish without having to quote polish them. So.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, I think they're polished aluminum, but I'm not 100% on that. So.
All right. Well, we'll have to check that out then. So something to look into.
Yeah, definitely. So it sounds like your trucking career was like off to a full steam. Like everything was going good. You worked for Horseless Carriage. We're doing the exotic cars, which, oh my God, there's got to be so many stories there. But what happened to get you out of the trucking industry with things going so well?
Oh, well, after Horseless Carriage, I went back to PGT, and you showed that you put up 99, unit number 9988, and I told you about that unit. It was all sanded and puffed and buffed. I buffed it all out, and it was, immaculate. And I'll tell you a funny story with that truck real quick. I never intended to show that truck. I just cleaned it up and polished it all because I wanted to look that way, going down the highway. And I was coming out of Brownsville. I delivered down into, I went down to, I took a load of North American stainless steel in Hawesville, Kentucky. This is back in 2002, I think. 2003, something like that. And I went down to Brownsville with it. I unloaded down there, Brownsville, Texas, on the Texas and Mexico line. Unloaded down there, and then I picked up a load of Mexinox coming up, actually of all places, here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I live now. But I was coming north. I was on 59 I was around Houston, and a good friend of mine, everybody in the trucking industry knew him as Uncle Daryl. His name was Daryl Hicks. He passed away a few years ago. Great guy, just an amazing guy. Loved him to death. Really good friend. And he did a lot with the National Association of Show Trucks. And he says, "Where are you at?" And I said, I'm here in Texas." He says, "Where are you at in Texas?" And I said, I'm down on Houston right now. And this was, the Friday before the truck show. And he says, we're up here at Billy Bob's in Fort Worth for the National Association of Show Trucks, Texas Billy Bob's Texas Truck Roundup. And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Well, I'll stop in and cruise in and say hey to everybody," because, Darren Stevens was there, a bunch of all the friend Chuck Hebner and all these guys I knew. I said, I'll swing by and I'll say hi to everybody. Well, I thought, my truck was just dirty. It was just had been, run the rain and been down Texas, it was dirty. And so I got it washed somewhere south of, on 35, somewhere south of Dallas, Fort Worth. And I come pulling into the truck, the Billy Bob's, the Fort Worth stockyards. And Uncle Daryl runs up to me and I rolled my window down. He helps on the side of my fuel tank, says, "I got you all entered." He says, "So why don't you get parked and get cleaning?" And I said, "You did what?" He says, I entered you in the show." And I said, "You got to be kidding me, right?" He says, "No." So I'm like, okay. So I parked the truck, and this is about, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I had, I had some polish in the side, for the wheels and aluminum, but I didn't have anything else. So we got to make a run to the store. So I think we went to Walmart or somewhere. I went to some store, automotive store. I got, paper towels and other rags, and we went to work cleaning. I went to work cleaning till rags went down at 9 o'clock the next morning. I was up all from about 5 o'clock till all evening long, all night long, all morning long. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, I had a jack under the wheels, turning the wheels so it had Bridgestone on top and the number of the tire, model underneath or whatever, and to give it its proper, so it didn't look, stupid sitting there. This was no tow truck by any means. I mean, I kept it all clean. Everything was always polished. But, I cleaned everything. I ate everything. And the next day when they gave out awards, I placed second with this truck. This was an international. And, Peterbilt beat me, and I beat another Peterbilt and a Kenworth, I think, in my class. I was in the company. I entered my truck in the company class. And it was just an international 9400. It wasn't anything special. It was the fleet truck, like every other truck in the fleet. But it paid off, and I won a prize for it. So I was pretty proud. So
that is so cool. That is so cool.
So that's just one of those things right there. But yeah, and then eventually I met somebody, and I got out of the truck altogether and took a job running a fleet out of Indianapolis, pulling curtain sides. And we pulled curtain sides, utility taut liners, and we delivered wood molding for Home Depot and things like that. And I liked it because it was nice. I could still get out and drive, and my truck drivers liked me. They respected me because I, came from their shoes. And, I would give them chrome and aluminum and chicken lights and things like that they wanted. I just told them that, the trucks, where my requirement had to be washed once a week. No ifs, ands, or buts. Until it was raining, you had to wash the truck. If you guys wanted chicken lights and chrome, aluminum better stay polished, lights better stay lit. And those were my requirements. I said those trucks are a reflection of me as the operations manager, you guys the driver, and us the company. I just reinforced that, and I gave them what they wanted. When my drivers, when they were due for a new truck, I said, "What do you want?" And I bought my one driver, Denton, one of my best drivers ever. I bought him a Western Star 4900. was a big Constellation sleeper on it. Had a big CS 600 horsepower ISX Cummins in it, 18-speed, and that truck was a fun truck to drive. I loved driving that truck when I got a chance to get behind the wheel of it. And and the guys took care of their equipment. They respected me, and they were great. And eventually, I left there. I went to work for a logistics company and became an operations manager. And really didn't play with the big trucks. I just worked for T&T Logistics North America and ran warehousing and other transportation operations for them, and set up some warehouses in Nashville, Tennessee, and Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I worked out of the main office in Indianapolis. And then I got out of the truck driving full time, and so I was just running fleets and doing logistics work, and I had some friends who still drove trucks, so every once in a while I get with one of them and go trucking for a day or something, or an evening. We go to my friend of mine hauled hogs, and he had a big Peterbilt, and I remember running over to him to Monmouth, Illinois, over to XL Packers a couple times. That was fun. Just to get out and go cruising. And I missed it, but I figured, life goes on. I'll get to it at some point again or whatever. And I didn't quit on my own terms per se. I wanted to make the girl I was with happy, and we had a house at the time, and I was engaged to be married. And then one night, it was August 16th, 2005, a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, what are you doing right now? He bought a new Harley Davidson. Why don't you meet me downtown, check out my new bike?" I'm like, all right, cool. So I hopped on my big show award-winning 1100 Suzuki GSXR, and a big show bike I had. And I remember gave the former fiance a kiss goodbye. Her mother were going to State Fair. And the next thing I know, I woke up out of a coma in hospital 3.5 weeks later. And I don't know what happened. They told me stuff that, what happened. I was involved in an accident. And the next thing I know, I woke up, I couldn't see. My right eye was 100% blind, and my left eye had about 2400 vision, and they didn't know if it would return or not. And so that's been 15 years ago nearly, and I still don't have any eyesight in my right eye, and still have 2400 vision in my left eye. And so yeah, I was like I said, woke up out of coma, and that was pretty shocking. I wasn't. I barely remember it. I remember my good friend Brian Tish was there in the hospital room. He walked in the hospital room with him and my friend John Kent, and he could tell something was different with me when I walked in, and I didn't know where I was. I barely remember that moment. I remember it very slightly, but it was just a long road to recovery after that, and
I can't even
pretty
imagine
hard, pretty
going
tough,
through something like that. Especially one minute everything's okay, like that's the last thing you remember, and then all of a sudden you're in the hospital and you're like, what the hell just happened to me? Like, I had
can't
imagine.
In the accident I suffered had a skull fracture from the nasal passages back. My brain swelled, pinching the optic nerve in my right eye. And for those of people who are listening, the optic nerve is part of the central nervous system. It's like the spinal cord. It loses its ability to regenerate after you're born. So sometimes, if the pressure is not enough, the optic nerve will be okay. But mine got pinched too much in the right eye, and basically the optic nerve is the wire that plugs from the eye to the brain, and that doesn't work. The eye is perfectly fine. It's 20/20 vision, but the wire hooking from the brain to the eye doesn't work. In my left eye, it's about 2400 vision. The optic nerve works, but the retina ruptured, scarring the macula. The iris is torn on my left eye, so it does not dilate properly anymore. And I only have about 2400 vision, so I don't see distance or detail very well. I have here I work from home now and do different things, but I run different. Technology is kind of amazing in the fact that it's made life easier for people with a vision impairment. But it's hard because I look and go, hey, I keep hoping Wednesdays and wake up it's all been a bad dream, but it is what it is. And you got to play the hand you're dealt. When you hit rock bottom, you got nowhere to go but up. And other friends stepped in and helped me out. And my friend Craig Zawiner, who used to own a big trucking website called TruckNet, and if people out there maybe listening, maybe they know me from TruckNet. I was one of the moderators on there for many, many years. And Craig was a really good friend of me, a good friend of mine. I met him, we knew each other for a long time. And Craig unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, and but him and I were talking on the phone one day, and I don't know how this thing got. He said we should do something fun. We should do something, for vision research or something. And had been looking into different what was going on out there, because there was no procedure that was going to repair my eyesight. It was going to take a medical breakthrough, and to this day, there's still no medical breakthrough. But Dr. Dongfeng Chang at the Escape and Eye Research Institute in Boston, Massachusetts, she had successfully regenerated the optic nerve. So I saw some glimmer of hope there. And so I was talking with Craig. So next thing I know, I'm calling up to the Escape-ins, and they put me in touch with the liaison for the facility, Rich Godfrey. He became a really good friend. And I kind of pitched my idea to him, wrote a proposal and pitched it all to him. And next thing I know, my friend Melanie Saunders became my friend, who was the director of annual giving and public relations for the Escape-ins, contacted me, and they liked my idea. This kind of this grassroots thing. We were going to reach out to truck drivers and say, hey, let's promote healthcare. I said healthcare to truck drivers, because it's kind of important for the job. I can't go back doing what I love, and you really don't understand what you got until it's gone, and how important your eyesight is, especially for a truck driver. And unfortunately, we kind of started it out at the wrong time in the economy. The economy tanked in 2008, and we launched it live in December of 2006 on the Midnight Radio Network with Eric Harley, WBAP out of Dallas, Texas. I love Eric to death. He's a good guy, one of the best trucking radio guys out there. And he was kind enough to have me on the show. I've been on a show a couple times over the years. And he said, yeah, let's do it, Mark. I said, okay, great. So it was me and Melanie and Craig on there at like midnight talking about this project, and we launched it, and we got some donations the next day and things like that. And went to the truck show, the Louisville Mid-America Trucking Show that year, and we passed out hats. I talked to manufacturers, talked to companies. Everybody loved the idea. They could totally see saw how important it was. But because, the recession that hit in 2008, everybody was holding on their money. They weren't willing to get behind stuff. So, it kind of made it difficult, but we kept doing what we were doing. And, companies got on board. My friend Tim Begley with Automated Transportation and the owner, Mark Hagedorn, out of St. Myron, Indiana, they stepped up. Tim and his big Western Star show truck they had at the time got on board and carrying the logos on the trailers and things like that. So it became pretty fun, And I remember my brother one time called me. He was on his way south he left Terre Haute, Indiana, and he was on his way back to Evansville, Indiana, heading down US 41. And he said he sent a picture, and he saw a truck and had my logo on the back door. So which my brother Nicholas actually is the artist behind. He created the logo, and so that's pretty special. People get to see that going on the highway, and I'd never seen one on the highway, but my brother saw one. I heard other people say they saw them, and that was pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think that's awesome how you were able to organize that and get that out there like you did. We see the pictures of the race cars even and the trucks.
Yeah, well, what came to the race cars, growing up in Indianapolis, one thing I love about as much as trucks, I love IndyCar racing. Indianapolis 500, nothing better. It's the greatest spectacle in racing. It's the biggest race in the world. They pack over a quarter million people into the track on race day. It's a special day, and I've been a fan of the race, and especially a fan of Roger Penske for since I was a kid as well. I mean, just for his accomplishments in racing, but his business. And when I was working and running the fleet of trucks out of Indianapolis, I dealt with Penske truck leasing for when I needed rental trucks or I needed certain equipment or whatever. I would go to them. And Christine White there and Dick Sayre and Brent Boyer and some of the people over there were always really good to me. And they used to invite me to Team Penske would have they call it Fast Friday in Indianapolis, and that was always the Friday before pole day in Indianapolis, where the cars run for the pole position. And that morning he would always have a breakfast, and they'd bring in the customers from the Indianapolis area, and you get to meet Mr. Penske, the drivers, and everybody. It was always really special. And I'm fortunate to be invited to that for years. And even after my accident, they kept on inviting me, and because they knew I was so passionate about it all and how much I was a Penske guy. And I remember was it 2007, I think it was. I was talking to Melanie up in Boston, and I said, I'm going to this breakfast. I said, I get a chance to talk to Mr. Penske. I said, I'm going to tell him who I am. I shook his hand before. I've said thank you to him, and I've always been was in awe of him. So I it's pretty funny. I rehearsed to him what I was going to tell him. Who I was, what I was doing, and when I finally got I talked to him. I remember one of the sales guys. I think it was Brent Boyer. Or it was Dick. I forget who it was. One of the guys from Penske Truck Leasing. And he said, is there a chance I could talk to Mr. Penske for a few minutes, like to explain to him about the charity I've been doing, work involved with. He said, sure. So he took me outside. He talked to Mr. Penske, and Mr. Penske said, I'd love to speak with him. I had his undivided attention for probably about 10, 15 minutes. And God knows how much that's worth, to most people. Mm-hmm. And I got to explain to him who I was, the charity I was involved with, the initiative of it. And the funny part was I had rehearsed everything I was going to say. And so I had it down. I would nail it. And when I got face to face with him, I'm meeting one of my idols. So it was a bit nerve wracking. The nerves hit. And I pretty much stumbled through the whole entire my entire sales pitch to him, and it was I felt so stupid afterwards. Mm-hmm. But I never forget something he said to me. He took the envelope that I gave him. I think a Eisen Road hat and an armband, and I gave him a press kit or whatever. And he took the envelope and he says, "I'll take a look at this, Mark, and I'll get back to you." And I said, "Okay." And then next thing you know, we both went inside outside the racetrack there to this over at the Brickyard, crossing the golf and went in his room and for breakfast with everybody. And a couple of months later, I kind of didn't think much of it. I thought, okay, I got a chance to talk to him, meet him, and tell him who I was. And a couple of months later, Melanie Saunders calls me from Scapins in Boston and says, "Mark, you're never going to believe what happened." I said, "What happened?" She said, we just received a donation from Mr. Penske. I said, "You're kidding me." And I said, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah." She told me how much the amount was for, and I said, "Wow, this is unbelievable," And it literally blew me away. So then the next year, I thought, you know what? If I can get, we made a thank you for Mr. Penske. We made him. We had these custom 134 scale model tractor trailers that we had done, and we did 3 or 4 of them. I have one actually. Melanie has it up in Boston, but. And then Mr. Penske has one, and then his son Jay Penske has one. And so the next year I presented this toy truck to him that was all custom 134 scale 1953 Kenworth bullnose with all of our logos and work on the side, and had Team Penske logo on the side. It was really neat. So anyway, I thanked him with that, and then my brother Nicholas and I, we said, you know what, let's get this logo on it. How cool would it be to have it on an IndyCar? This is what we love. Let's put it on an IndyCar. Moving 200, 20, 30 miles an hour on the Nelson Motor Speedway. We got a logo on a race car, not just trucks. We're gonna get on a race car. So I started pitching. I started calling IndyCar teams, pitching these teams. Emailing them, and everybody loved it. They loved the idea, but they wouldn't. They all want me to write a check, and unfortunately, we're a nonprofit, so we couldn't afford to write a check. I could write them a tax credit, couldn't write them a check though. So one of the last teams I contacted was Lucille Dragon Racing, and the team was owned by Jay Penske, which is Roger Penske's youngest son, and Steve Lusso, who was the president and CEO of was it McAfee or Norton Technologies. They do the software for your computer, and they were doing a lot of philanthropy work. And I wrote him this very personal letter. I called out to his bookstore, Dragon Books, out in Beverly Hills, California, and I spoke to a woman out there and told her who I was and why I was contacting, why I wanted to get in touch with Jay. And so I wrote Jay this very personal letter explaining to him, who I was. I'm his father and blah, blah, blah. And here's what we're doing. I've been a big IndyCar fan, and a fan of Penske Racing and this whole thing. And I said, I'd love to get this on your IndyCar. And I didn't hear anything for a couple of months, and out of the blue, I get this email from him, and I about fell over. I couldn't believe it. When I got an email from Jay Penske saying, "Mark, we'd love to carry the logo on the race car." I mean, it was seriously, wow, and for 5 seasons, Jay carried the logo on the race car. But I remember though calling my brother. I remember that day when I got the email. I was just ecstatic, and I remember picking up the phone. My brother Nick and his at the time was his girlfriend, now it's his wife, Eileen. They were out in Hawaii, and I couldn't get a hold of Nick. And I couldn't get a hold of my dad. Couldn't get a hold of anybody to tell him. So it was just driving me nuts. I couldn't get a hold of Melanie in Boston or whatever. I couldn't get a hold of anybody, and then I finally got a hold of Nick, and Nick, I guess he just went like. He went like, couldn't believe it. It was, I think he about fell over as well. And Jay Penske was going to carry the, logo on the race car. It was his artwork, which was cool. And if you could see the logo on the Eisenhower logo, it's either the green is the outline of a truck, or it's maybe a landscape, and then the circular part of the logo, which is like maybe the sun. Some people the sun, or maybe it's an eye, and it's hope rising over the horizon. Maybe it's an eye in a truck. It had a dual purpose, and so it's however you look at the logo. It's pretty much my brother Nicholas, his artwork, my charity, and we're getting to raise, do some vision, raise awareness for vision. And prior to that, I had been on the air downtown in Annapolis with Jake Query from WIBC in Annapolis. I'd received the God Be Grand Giver Award. And Jake he announces for the IndyCar series. He's one of the pit reporters, reports from the turn, on the radio. Great guy, love him to death. And him and I just talked IndyCars. And after that, I told him about this, what was going on, that the logo was going to be carried on the race car. And I remember him. I hadn't seen the logo yet, and it was like, I don't know, it was May of 07, 08. May of I think it was 08, and Jake was in the pits, and I get this text message from him, and he's one of the WIBC guys on the reporters for the IndyCar series, and it's a picture of my logo on the race car, and I hadn't seen it yet, and I was like, how cool is this, So then I remember going over there on Fast Friday and getting to meet Jay and everybody, and getting to see the car for the first time, and was blown away to see the logo on it, and meet Thomas Schechter, the driver at the time, and it kind of proceeded from there, for several seasons, and we did a bunch of stuff with the team, and it was a lot of fun, and we had a good time, and like I said, Jay carried on there, and I remember letting Nick, my brother Nicholas, we were in the garage. The racetrack was like 2010 or 2011, I think, Carb Day, and they given us full-on passes to get anywhere in the paddock we wanted, or the garage and things like that. And my brother Nick is like waiting outside of the garage area of their garage in Gasoline Alley at the Motor Speedway. And I said, "We sitting around, just go in." He's like, "I'm like, just go in. We can go in. We're logos on the race car. We can go in." So we walked in there, and Jay Penske goes, "Hey guys, good to see you," and da. Introduced him to Jay and everybody, and then and Nick were looking at the race car, and so we got this neat picture. I think I might probably send it to you of him and I posing together with the logo on the race car, and so it was a pretty special time for a long time there, and unfortunately we don't. This escape has merged with Mass Eye and Ear, and then our efforts were kind of got pushed aside at that point, and they were looking for people with big checks, people to write big checks, and I wasn't writing a big check. I was promoting what they were doing, and ISID awareness, and getting small donations, more grassroots, as opposed to being some big donor. So it is what it is, and it was a good time for a long time, and everybody says I should do something with it again, but and maybe at some point I will, but for now I'm kind of busy with other things, and other. I really enjoy being back on the trucks again full time, and so yeah.
That's awesome. Well, talk about it. Talk about an amazing experience out of a bad situation. I have always wanted to drive a race car. Like, I love it all, and I have to admit I'm not a big IndyCar watcher or NASCAR or anything like that. But I've always wanted to drive. I love speed. I love action. And I even checked into paying a fee to drive at a racetrack. Some tracks have this fee thing for like $3,500. You can drive a race car. So one day it's on my bucket list.
When I was in high school, I dated a girl, and one of my best friends this day was her dad. I met one of my best friends because of the girl I dated, and he had sprint cars and midgets and sprint cars, and so for several years I wrenched on them with him and worked on them, and I ran midgets for several years when I was growing up, and it was a lot of fun, wrenching on them, working on them as well. And I've always enjoyed, race cars and big trucks. That's kind of my thing. I've had sports cars as well, and I enjoy things with engines, and but trucks are my passion. I like the big diesel engines, and there's nothing. I remember, for example, I remember my brother Nick. I think it was Christmas or Thanksgiving. I think it was Christmas or maybe Thanksgiving. I forget. It was Christmas time actually. My brother Nick is a graphics technical artist. He worked for video game companies out in the Bay Area, California for years. He was home visiting. We were up in Annapolis, and my mom lived in Evansville, Indiana, little town Newburgh, actually outside of there for many years. And so I had my truck, so I'll hold Nick back down. So we had gone out with some friends the night before drinking, and then we left out partying with some friends. And so the next morning we got up and went to the truck and got in it. And my brother Nick had never been in a truck before, and so he was with me, and he thought it was the coolest thing ever, going on the highway in this big Kenworth. And it could be how up high he was, and loved everything about it. And I remember one thing I specifically remember about that trip, that was he's like, let's crash through something. I'm like, no, we can't be crashing through anything. I remember he brought me the album "Rockin' the Suburbs" by Ben Folds, and we're running on the highway listening to that, and it was a good time. It was always fun when I got to take people for rides in the truck, because they really get to see how big they are, from my perspective, and how much you can't see out of these things, I remember taking my friend of mine, Pat Fagan, for a ride one time, older guy, and he's like, a car cut me off, and I'm like, he was like kind of shocked by it, and I didn't react, and he was, was like kind of going, he gave a little fit about it, and I said, I deal with it all day long. I see this all day long, 24/7. I said, I'm used to it. You know what I mean? You just deal with it. And but they get up there and they really how big it is, and how you get the big windshields and the mirrors, but how much you can't see. Mm-hmm. And when I used to take people for rides, they would get a new respect, for being around a tractor trailer going on the highway. Not riding its blind spot, not tailgating it. Passing it and getting by it, not sitting there in its blind spot or doing something stupid that they shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. And so that was always kind of fun to do as well,
Yeah, definitely. Pretty much every rider that I've ever had that hasn't been a truck driver has always been shocked at just how much we deal with from day to day as drivers. People cutting us off, stopping right in front of us, driving on the wrong side of the road. I've seen it all. Like, I have so many
I've seen that too. Yeah,
I
remember I was heading along Interstate 64 one night towards Louisville and southern Indiana, and I saw these state troopers, blowing by me, and I'm going, what the heck's going on here? So there was a car coming on the wrong side of the interstate, and I was like, oh, that explains it, But I was headed eastbound, and that car was headed westbound, and they were going to the center to turn around, and I saw it come. I remember seeing it come by, and I'm going, oh, that could be end badly, and I don't know what happened, but I've seen it before too, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I had a close encounter in Columbia, Missouri, back in, I guess it's been probably 4 or 5 years ago. It's been a while. But anyway, I was just coming into Columbia. I just passed the Missouri River Bridge, and I see all these cop cars, and I see this pickup, and I'm like, oh boy, it's a chase. Well, as soon as I passed them, I kicked on the police scanner. I always listened to that in the truck whenever something was going on. And mm-hmm. I heard, hey, dispatch, be advised, he just went, he is now westbound in the eastbound lanes, and he is charging at traffic. It looks like he's attempting to hit him head on. I'm like, oh my God, I just missed that whole thing by seconds. Like, it was crazy.
Wow. Yeah, no, I could totally, some of the stuff, I remember when I was at PGT, and I remember I'd done this run. One of those things I probably, was out of hours and was running stuff for, whatever. And I was over in Philly. I went from Philly. I hauled into Philly up to Morrisville, up to Steel Mill to U.S. Steel or whatever. And then I reloaded out of there, went to Mansfield, Ohio, or someplace around there, and then I headed back to Pittsburgh, reloaded out of U.S. Steel, going for GE. I think it was GE down in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm pretty sure. And I was really tired, so I went down to Dallas Pike in West Virginia there on 70, went to bed. And I woke up. It was probably about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sure you've been through, on 70 there through Dallas Pike, got the big hill right there coming down into Wheeling, right?
Yep.
And so I rolled down, it's early in the morning. I went and got my Diet Coke in the morning and some donuts or something. I'm just get out and off I go, heading away to Louisville. And it's like 5, it's still dark out. And I remember rolling down the hill and getting into the Wheeling area before you go on, hit through the tunnel right there. And I remember there's this car. I remember kept watching it. Because the tunnel was one lane, headed each way. So you're headed when I said westbound, and I remember this car I was in the left-hand lane because the right-hand lane merged off to an access road, or an exit there going into Wheeling right there, and last minute this car cut over right in front of me. Literally, I came into my right front steer tire was. I literally slammed on the brakes and pulled the horn, and smokes ran it. But I felt the trailer go, whoop, boom, and I had this big 50. It was probably about 40-some thousand, 46, probably 44,000 pound steel coil, riding shotgun on the trailer, secured down, and I had I think 5, 4, 6 chains on it, or trip chain on it, and went across the top, but. These big coils on there, they're not, they'll move if you're not careful, and so that got me worried when I did that. This car cut me off, and I had to slam on the brakes, and I had this big coil on, and so I was like, hopefully this thing is going to be bad. So I get up over on the Ohio side, I pull off into the rest area, and I wait till light comes up, and I go out, and I was pulling a flatbed at the time. I didn't have a covered wagon right then. And I remember getting out, and I pulled the tarp off of it. And this thing had stretched the chains, and the coil was actually turned a little bit, and I had 4 chains crisscrossing, and then I had one over the top, and a trip chain on the front, and the damn thing, it had twisted, it moved, the coil moved, and I was really just amazed by that, and a little nerve wracked because I felt it. It was a couple hours later, so the sun was up, so I pulled the tarp off. I'm ready to get all these chains have been stretched, so. Put these aside, get some fresh chains out, and rechain this coil down. And while I'm doing this, I remember this family walks up, and they're like, we've seen trucks with these on. What is that? I said, that's steel coil. I said, steel coil. I said, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm resecuring the coil. What happened? Why? And I said, well, I had a car cut me off, and I said, I had it fully secured. I had to slam the brakes on, and smoke went off the tires, and I said, the coil moved. And I said, even though it was in had secured down, pure per all the DOT, rules and then some. I had this coil down, it still stretched all those chains, and I remember the family was kind of amazed that all those chains on there and it still moved, and that's that's one of those things that you don't forget about, and you can never take that for granted. I know guys who go into a steel mill and have a 50,000 pound coil, throw 2 chains on and go, and I'm like, you guys are nuts, you're going to kill somebody, and that's not the way I would roll. I would never do that, and I always took pride in my load securement, and that's probably one of the closest, scariest things I had to deal with right there was almost losing the coil, and basically your job, I lost my job at that point and everything else, and I'm proud to say I didn't, and I had it secured, and it stretched all the chains, and I got rid of those chains eventually when I got back to the main office, and got chains to replace those ones. I had other extra chains on the truck that I could use to secure this coil down, but so it's a little nerve wracking when you feel almost a 50,000 pound coil back there move,
Yeah, and you wouldn't assume it would. Before I comment any further, I was going to ask you, how are we doing on time? Do you have time if we take some callers?
Oh, we got all time in the world. I told you before. I said, I'm all yours until you want to get rid of me. So we could sit here and talk trucks all night. So.
Awesome. Okay, guys, if you want to join the conversation, our number is 1-800-395-1576. That's 1-800-395-1576. If you have a question for Mark or just want to talk trucking specs, alternative specs, do you remember what movie that's off of? It was a hilarious clip. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, 1-800-395-1576 if you want to join the discussion with me and Mark. But on the note of those chains, people don't realize like how easily the loads can shift. I mean, whether it's dry van, but especially the flatbed, because you've seen all those pictures of like the log trucks where they've had a hard break and the logs have went right through the cab. Like it's a serious deal.
Oh yeah, I know it's huge. I mean, I think it's funny because flatbeds are required if they either have a bulkhead on a flatbed, or if you don't have a bulkhead on a flatbed, you got to have a headache rack. And I always thought it was kind of funny. I mean, I had my last PGC truck I had both. I pulled a covered wagon and a headache rack on it, and because I was on dedicated run for a while, pulling trailers without a headache rack, and I always thought it was kind of funny that I was kind of laughing to myself, going, these headache racks are pretty, they're nice, they're convenient for putting storage coils or for putting storing chains and other stuff, and I always thought it was kind of awkward. Though I'm going, you really think of if you got a 40,000 pound steel coil riding suicide, if it breaks all chains, that's not going to come through that headache rack and crash through the cab anyway and kill you. So
No kidding. It looks like we do have a caller. Let's see who's calling through. I'm going to try to merge the call. If I cut you off, I'll try to call you back.
All right.
We're going to try to merge calls here.
From
Barry.
To accept this call, press 1. To send the caller.
Hey, you're on the air on Trucker Talk Live.
Hi, Brittney. How are you?
Hey, doing good. How are you doing? Is this Barry?
Yes, this is Barry.
Okay, I thought it said Larry or Eric. Tells you how well I hear.
I know a lot of times with the phone lines trying to get the names to go across them, it is a little bit tricky.
Mm-hmm. So what's on your mind?
Actually, I'm dealing with a lot of sunburn right now. I went for a bike ride and got the sunscreen.
Motorcycle ride or?
Yeah, I went for a bicycle ride, and because my motorcycle was down and some other stuff, I just dealing with basically anxiety that's going on, especially at work right now, because we're dealing with a lot of our customers trying to get our loads shipped around and everything.
Got you.
Like, I had the time off, so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get the bicycle out. I'm going to go for a ride.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a 2-hour ride ended up turning into a 7-hour ride, and I forgot the sunscreen.
That sucks. I get these uneven tans. Actually, I shouldn't call it a tan. It's a downright sunburn. As a truck driver, I'll be going south to Oklahoma, and the sun will be beating down on my left arm, and it'll be like all beet red and burnt, and then my right arm will be like white as chalk. So I've been buying these things off of Amazon. I don't know what they're actually called, but they're like these sleeve things you can put on your arm just to keep the sun from burning you. But I've been relying on those lately.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who are having that issue with the sunburning and everything, especially just driving. It's like this year it seems like the UV rates are up a lot higher than they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
At the same exact time. And it's like, even driving, like when I'm out there driving on the truck, it's like, for some reason, my left arm will be all burnt down one whole side. And when I switch back with my partner on the way home, cause they have me running with a partner driver right now, he's like, oh, how's your arms feel? I'm like, yeah, you're lucky. I get the sunburn on the way down, and then I switch to feet, hoping he's going to get burnt on the way back, and no, I'm the one getting burnt on the way back also.
It's always the way it works, it seems.
So it's like I just get stuck with all of the sun, and my poor partner driver gets all the nice shade and the rainy days or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to be the way it goes.
I know. Mark was saying how he had the load that he was hauling when he got cut off and the load it shifted and the chains were stretched.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of your companies, some people with flatbedding, they would prefer not to use they don't use the chains, they use a strap. Where, in my honest opinion, I don't know if Mark could agree or anybody else that drives flatbed agrees with this one. I would prefer to turn around and actually tie it down with bolts because, one, you can run the strap a certain way to tighten it down stronger to your trailer where it does not have a way to bounce. And with your chains, you can do multiple securements in different directions so you can't get it shifting completely off. And because, like you said, it stretched his chains out where, thank God it stretched his chains because if it was just possibly a strap or something, it could have snapped the whole strap and everything and been all over the place.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Mark, are you still on the line? Can you hear everything?
I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
I don't know if you've ever pulled a flatbed before or not, but I mean, DOT requires you to secure a load a certain way, especially when it comes to home steel. And like I said, this coil at the time, this has been 20 years ago. It was riding 20 plus years ago. It was riding shotgun, which means the eye of the coil is running the length of the trailer. And so you want one chain for every 10,000 pounds on the coil. And then I was at 10,000 plus one. So I had 4 chains crisscrossing the center. I had a trip chain across the front, so if the coil came forward, it would flip on its front and then land flat on as well as a chain run over the top, plus 2 4-inch straps over the top, and still stretched it. And 4-inch straps are great, but you got a coil that big. It's that's a lot of mass in a 4-foot area. Weighing almost 50,000 pounds. So yeah, it happens every once in a while, and it's not caused by, it wasn't caused by me. It was caused by a car that cut me off, and I had no choice but to slam the brakes on. And as a result, you end up with things like that happen. And thank God I had the load properly secured because it could have been much worse.
Yeah, and I mean it's like with me, I haven't pulled flatbeds yet. I mean, maybe I'll get into it. I just don't know when. But when I was actually in my training, when I decided I grew up on the farm and I left and trucking. I got back into it now. But we were in training and my instructor actually told me the story of how during the wintertime he had a really bad accident and he had a truck driver that they came flying up past him on the interstate. And he just flew right by him, and as soon as he did, the other trucker hit the black ice on the highway. And my friend, he knew, my instructor, he had his plans all planned out and everything. He went to get his escape route to miss the other truck's trailer, and when he did, the guy ended up being able to correct himself again. So he got moved it away from that area, recorrected himself to my friend. My friend went to make the final readjustment to correct himself to get out of the escape area of the guy's trailer. The guy hit another spot, lost control, and they ended up burying the trailer halfway through the cab of the semi-truck.
Oh, my God.
And they said the only thing that would save anybody was the part that went through the tractor of the trailer was literally the spread tantrum that was on the trailer was the only thing because it basically just slid right through unless the driver just enough room to move.
That's crazy.
And I know a lot of people the accidents out there the accidents are bad. Yes, they're bad, and there's some drivers where they never get back in the truck because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's so important to have proper load securement. I mean, it's life or death, but that's insane.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, Brittney. I'm proud to say, I got right around 1 million safe miles underneath my butt in an 80,000-pound tractor trailer, and you see bad accidents out there, and whether they're caused by weather or whatever, you have to adjust your driving to that. And there's nobody to blame but the truck driver at that point. If they get caught if they're hitting black ice, or they're in a snowstorm, or it's raining, or whatever the situation is, you have you can't be speeding, and you have to take precaution upon that. I mean, that's like anything else, just responsibility. And I've seen plenty of irresponsible truck drivers out there, and unfortunately, other people get hurt because of irresponsible people, whether they're in a car or they're in a truck. It doesn't matter what they're in. So,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Barry, thank you so much for calling in with your comment. We've got some more callers in pending. So,
anytime you just all be safe out there, I'm getting ready to head out to a flooded town and do some more work.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Well, be safe out there, Barry.
Thanks for calling.
I will be. God bless both of you, and keep doing what you're doing. Be safe.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, looks like we have another caller.
Ooh, who is it this time?
We'll find out here in a minute. I
all
think
right.
The caller is cycling in queue, so we have them like cycling. So it'll ring through like every.
So we can randomly pick one, like round and round she goes, where she stops, nobody knows, and we get the random caller.
We kind of do. This is like Russian roulette, depending on the caller, I guess.
I like how we're doing this show here tonight, Brittany. So this will be fun.
Never a dull moment.
Apparently not.
Yeah, I wish one of these days we're going to get a switchboard and I'll actually be able to see and maybe even have a call person where we can see exactly who's waiting.
Get a call screener up there, right? So you get somebody calling in and, hey, Brittany, they want to talk to you about this. Have it whisper in your earpiece, right? So that way you know what they're about.
Exactly. Here, it looks like it's coming through again. Let me try to put them on real fast. Merge with call.
Talk live from
Lee Leonard.
To accept this call, press 1. To send the caller.
Hey, Lee, you are on Trucker Talk Live. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I am doing good. What's on your mind?
I seen where you drawed my name when you first done the drawing this evening.
Oh, the headset?
Yeah.
Is this Roger Leonard?
Leonard, yes, it is.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm so excited. I felt so bad last week when we had to cancel the show, so.
Yeah. I was like, hey, God, when I seen my name come out on it.
Well, congratulations. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I am too.
So what's on your mind tonight? Do you have any questions for Mark?
How long have you been driving, Mark?
Well, I don't drive anymore, but I drove for, about 97 through 2000. Well, I didn't really ever didn't ever give up my CDL. I always kept that, and I didn't full-time. I got out of the truck full-time in 2003, so I was a good 6-7 years, so
yeah. I
drove, and then I was, still give the truck every once in a while, with friends, or when I worked for a company, I would fill in part, if for example, if I had a load that had to go, I couldn't get one of my outsourced carriers to take at the time, or my drivers were all busy. Guess what? I'd work all day in the office, and I'd truck all night long, so... and go do that, and I would run and dispatch the trucks from the cab of the truck, and I'd work, 80-hour weeks sometimes, but I enjoyed it. It was fun, so you had to do what you had to do. So
yeah.
What mask? What you drive a truck there, Roger?
No, I know people that drives trucks.
No, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I was going to ask you if you were a driver or not. Yeah, I drove for years, and I've been around them since I was a kid, and I still love them, even though I don't have enough eyesight. And it's an honor to get to meet. I met Brittney through some mutual friends, I love meeting great people in the trucking industry as well, and go forward with it. So, enjoy your headset there. It looks like a nice headset. I kind of want one of those. So, it
looks like a nice headset.
You'll have to let us know.
I'll contact you after the stream.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll talk to you then. Thank you for calling.
All right.
Mm-hmm, bye.
Hey, Brittney.
Mm-hmm.
Brittney?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, yep. We'll go back to make sure we're still... Hey, I was going to say, if you hadn't had a chance, I was going to tell everybody, if you want to, I'm sure you guys all know Brittney's pink Volvo. I mean, it's kind of iconic and distinctive, and can't miss it. That's for sure. It caught my attention, and I'm a blind guy.
Awesome.
But we have it on. It's on this month. It is our truck of the month at DuncanPutman.com. So my longtime I got to plug Duncan before I haven't mentioned Duncan yet, and we haven't really talked about that yet, and. Brittney and Duncan is one of my closest and best friends. I met Duncan in 1990, and him and his wife Jeanette, they moved to Indianapolis about the same time I did, and we were both members of the American Truck Historical Society, and that's how we met. And we've been friends ever since. And Duncan used to write for Trucking International over in Europe, and he's written for Overdrive and a bunch of different magazines. Former late great John Stevens, who had Trucks magazine, and but Duncan is an amazing photographer, a really good close friend, and him and I, we've done a lot together. I knew his family. I mean, he might as well be family to me. I know they can treat me as family, and we've gone, photographed trucks, gone to the truck shows together throughout the years, and done all kinds of great stuff. And just an amazing guy. So a few years ago, we started a website to feature all of our trucking photography, and you can find it at Duncan Putman. That's DuncanPutman.com. And this month, we feature cool photos of cool trucks, and 99% of it's Duncan's photography, but every once in a while we'll sneak one of my pictures in there, a picture I took that's, I'm not a bad photographer, but I'm not Duncan Putman. So, and that's why he's the expert. You've seen some of his photography, I know, Brittney. Mm-hmm. And, but, we're always looking for, tell some of your listeners, if you guys got a cool ride, doesn't have to be some big fancy show truck. I'd love to, but you want to show off your ride, want to tell your story. Love to have you on the website. Brittney was kind enough to share her story a little bit about herself and her truck with our readers, and we'd love to have you as part of the show as well, a part of our website as well. And if you guys want to do that, you're welcome to contact me via the website. You can get in touch with Brittney. I'm sure she'd be happy to put you in touch with me.
Yeah, definitely. And guys, I'll add the links as well after the stream, so that you guys can find the website. That's DuncanPutman.com, correct? Is that how you pronounce it?
Putman, P-U-T-M-A-N.
Putman. Okay, I have it up on the screen now. Looks like
look at that big fancy. That right there is a 1964 Diamond T model 931F in the header right there. It was owned by J.D. Cantwell from Lebanon, Indiana. A really super nice guy. His family, the Cantwell family, had lots of Diamond Ts. And look at that. If you scroll down there's a big pink Volvo that's kind of looking pretty sharp right there. If you scroll down there a little bit, I think there's a truck of the month there. I think you got to go down a little bit though.
Oh, that is so cool.
Oh, look at that. There's a Volvo right there. Whose is that? You know who that is?
The fact that you're bragging about a Volvo in some ways is a good thing.
Hey, don't. I'm propping you up over here because you're kind enough to have me on the show. You and I have talked about doing some stuff, show wise in the future. So I gotta put my 2 cents worth in here, and that could be nice, right? So yeah. Plus, I figure, if we go to a truck show or something, I gotta get a ride there because I can't even drive a car anymore. So I have to be nice that way. At least maybe I'll get a ride in the pink Volvo, So.
There you go. One thing I really do like about the website here is looking through is you have a lot of the human interest aspect, not the stories behind the drivers, not only the specs, not only the trucks. You've got a lot of cool trucks, but you also have the stories behind those trucks, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, did you read through? I don't know if you had a chance to look through them. Usually, some of them Duncan I've written some of them. I enjoy writing. I wrote your article, and there's been some cool, great. Right now Duncan's been working on, and I'm behind on some stuff. I run the whole entire blind guy around the website here, by the way. We're getting ready to hopefully republish some of his articles he wrote years ago for Trucking International and other magazines, and we'll put those up on the site as well. But yeah, it's fun. You get to meet people, and a couple of my most favorite articles. Articles I've written, whether they have personal interest to me or not. It's everybody's got a story to tell, whether it's a show truck or not. They've always done something cool. I mean, whether it's Paul Sagehorn and he owns the 1980 Kenworth K100C Aerodyne that was used in the television show BJ and the Bear. I think February last year I featured a guy. Dan Miller was his name. He was a retired airlines pilot. Always loved trucks. And then when he retired, when he was forced to retire from the airline when he turned 60, he wanted something to do, so he went out and bought a Max Superliner and went trucking. You know, the Martin family out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. You know, they have a 65 Peterbilt that's nicknamed Old Clyde. It's been in the family since the day it was new. His dad picked it up at the Peterbilt factory in Oakland, California. You know, before when they were still built there, and drove it home back to Pennsylvania. I mean. Or, you know, we did I wrote an article last year, Duncan and I got to do a photo shoot back in 2018 with Jessup Trucking, their 1955 Kenworth Bullnose. And that truck was something I remember seeing as a kid. It always eluded me from photographing. And I finally got to catch up with it nearly 25 years later, you know, and finally get to shoot it and see it up close. And you know, I could write an article about it. It was fun. So, you know, I mean, I love to, you know, if anybody out there wants to show off their ride, we'd love to have you on the site. And you know, I enjoyed writing an article about Brittney and her truck. It's unique. It's the only Volvo on the site we've done a feature with, so you can feel special in that regard, there, Brittney.
That is awesome. I'm so honored. So you mentioned BJ and the Bear. Speaking of that, that is an old trucking show, right? You had that, and then you had the old movies. But I've got a couple of pictures of you.
BJ and the Bear was on NBC from 1970, 79 through 81, age 70, and the pilot was in 78, if I remember right.
With the monkey,
and BJ McKay was a fictional owner-operator. He was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, of all places, and he's played by actor Greg Evigan. And he roamed up and down the highways in a truck with his best friend, a chimpanzee named Bear. I'm sure everybody remembers that. And you know, while most people don't remember a single episode, you know, I can't remember. I remember a couple, you know, and there's things that happen in them. And I have all the episodes actually on some DVDs. You know, but everybody knows that truck. I mean, it's just so iconic because of the Aerodyne and the paint scheme and I think I sent you a picture of it actually. But there's, you know, it was really neat. I felt like I was 5 years old again back in June 2018. We're in Lexington, Kentucky, at the American Truck Historical Society National Convention, and to actually see the BJ McKay truck up close and in person, I felt like I was 5 years old again, you know, and then to meet Greg Evigan, you know, BJ McKay was even more special. And having him and I taking the picture with the truck together, I mean, it was a great day, great moment, and you know, it's one of those things that just has such meaning to me. And I was telling some friends of mine from Kenworth, I said it's amazing the amount of mileage Kenworth has gotten out of that truck from a marketing standpoint. I mean, nearly 40 years later, that truck is still, everybody knows it. Everybody knows it's BJ and the Bear, and it's a Kenworth. It's Kenworth Aerodyne, you know, and that says a lot right there. People don't remember the show, don't remember anything about it, but they all know the truck, and that says a lot from a marketing standpoint.
Absolutely, it's beautiful. So, who actually owns this truck? Does Greg Evigan own it?
It's owned by Paul Sage. It's owned by Paul Sagehorn out of Sparta, Wisconsin, and Paul and his son Craig own it. And actually they have the original trailer too. It's a 1972 Brown that the truck is pulling, and that's a 1980 Kenworth K100C Aerodyne, like I said. And Paul Sagehorn owns it, and super nice guy. I had a chance to meet with him, speak with him in Lexington, as well as I've emailed with him when we did the article. And picture right there is by Duncan. And Greg Evigan was telling me stories asking about Bear, the chimpanzee, and I guess chimpanzees are kind of mean. I guess from what he told me, they were fun, but they also can be mean. I guess he was telling me. I'm trying to remember how this whole story went as we were talking, and I think the chimpanzee's trainer told him, if you give him food, don't try to take it back. Well, I guess Greg didn't listen. He took it back, and I guess Bear bit him.
Oh my God, that is crazy. Yeah, I've heard they're very mischievous and moody.
Yeah, right. So,
but I am too. If somebody tries to take my food, oh my God.
You know, they give him. I guess if you gave him some food and he tried taking it back, and I guess the chimpanzee, you know, Bear, I guess he's right, you know, in this television show, I guess Bear bit him. So, and I guess that's the first time. He told me a few times. I guess a few occasions he did that, but that was one of the ones he told me when we were talking. And actually, I remember talking to Greg, and he said he would do an interview with me, and I didn't get a chance to get back to speak to him any more detail because he always had a line of people that were waiting to get his autograph or something. And I've sent him an email via his website, but never had a chance. I haven't heard from him. So Greg Evigan, if you're out there listening to this, and hey, I'd like to do an interview with you about the show again. And I already got the truck on here, but I want to talk to you about playing BJ McKay. So
Definitely, that would be a fascinating interview. I'd like to hear all the stories with the chimpanzee.
and we'll just do it here on Brittney and Pink instead. What do you say? We can write it out. We can write something up, but even better if we get Greg here on the show with us. We can. We could
do a three-way. We'll do like a three-way call, and we'll both interview him. That would be amazing.
Let's do it. Let's go for it. Yeah. I think we should do that.
I love it. I wonder what DOT would think of a chimpanzee named Bear nowadays, Scott.
I don't know. I see people with whole families of dogs going down the highways in their trucks, and I wonder how that's safe, so I don't know.
That's so true. Yeah, speaking of all of that, what do you think about all the changes in the industry? Everything's like night and day in just 10 years, let alone 20 or 30.
Well, it's I was telling you and Sadie on the phone a while back, and I tell everybody, I'm old school now. So if I went trucking, it'd be on my terms, and meaning I'd be an owner operator. I would have my truck would be ELD exempt, so it would be 1999 or older or whatever, 2000 or older. I think it has to be for ELD exempt. I would run paper logbook and be on my terms. Honestly, I think some of the technology is amazing. I think it's your stuff you were telling me, when I was writing the article on you, and the stuff that these trucks are equipped with. I mean, I went over and got some pictures the other day over at Kenworth with a brand new W990, and I can't remember if I touched base on this earlier in the interview or not, but I was always kind of skeptical and hesitant of it, and I don't like change much, and the W900 is a very, very classic truck, whether it's an early A model or it's the L model or whatever. It's they're beautiful trucks, and so for Kenworth to come out with a 990 for something to replace that, to me is just kind of sacrilegious. And so I was all kind of skeptical of it, and I remember getting the press release and going, I don't know if I like that or not. It looks like a cross between a Freightliner Coronado and an International 9900 or something. And I've never seen pictures of it. And I remember going over to get some pictures. You wanted some pictures of current headshots of me, so I went over there and they had a brand new W900 in the showroom, but the lighting was bad, so we really couldn't get decent pictures. So I asked the salesman, Paul, I said, hey, you got any W990s here? And he said, I got one. And I said, oh, he's selling a lot. We can pull it out. I said, okay, great. So we pull it out, and I looked it over pretty good. I was very impressed. I was impressed with the whole build. I was impressed with the dashboard, the sleeper, had the 76-inch midroof on it, had a big Cummins power, an 18-speed in it. And I could totally see myself rolling down the highway in it, but if you had given me the choice between the W900L with the studio sleeper in the showroom or the W990 with the 76-inch midroof on it, I'll take that W990 all week long and twice on Sunday. I'm traditional, it's classic for me, but I like that. I'm not going to knock the W990. I like it. I think it has its place in trucking. I think it serves as a different generation of truck drivers now than when I was driving or the drivers before me. I'm a lifestyle trucker, meaning I live and breathe them. I spend my spare time polishing them, things like that. Where the other guys, to them, it's a job. And I get that, and that's what they do and they like their job, but if they don't live and breathe the trucks like I do. And so I think it serves its purpose, and it has a place in trucking, as does like your Volvo and other trucks. I mean, they all do. And that's why these companies build them. But, I was impressed with it, actually. It was a nice truck, and I won't knock it. And, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there, everything I've read about them and people who do have them or driving them, love them. They love them. They like them. My thing is, though, is, with the new trucks, I'd be curious to, you and I talk about it some more time. And sometimes it's about the electronic logbooks, because I honestly don't know how, once that clock starts ticking, you got to go. And that's got to be, I don't know if I could deal with that. I don't know what it's like for you. I mean, how do you deal with that? I'm curious.
It was rough at first because I started on paper. And, I remember those days. And it was on its way out. I mean, ELD was gaining popularity even in truck school. But the pressure difference was what I noticed the most, was instant pressure when you're on ELD. Now, on the other hand, it was much easier as far as, I didn't have to fill out all this stuff on paper. A lot of it was automatic. So in
Mhm.
some ways it made my job easier, but it put a lot of pressure on me to get the load from point A to point B and try to explain that, I remember one time this ELD went off. It started going crazy. It was the Qualcomm. Me and the Qualcomm
Mhm.
went round and round many times. One of those times was when I had sufficient time to get to the truck stop. However, there had been an accident about 2 miles from my exit to the truck stop. So, yes, needless to say, I ended up sitting for like 30 minutes. Highway shut down. Finally, I go. I was a minute late, 1 minute over by the time I backed into my parking space at the truck stop. So I
Uh-huh.
still did really good, right? But the thing alarmed. It sent notifications to safety, and then the company's calling saying you had a violation and went over your hours,
Mhm.
and it's like, are you guys serious right now? So,
Yeah, see,
yeah.
that's the thing right there. Like, I think about it, and I honestly couldn't. I mean, I know guys. You guys get about a 30-minute break now, and I honestly don't know how the drivers do it because you guys have to plan so much. The stress of planning ahead of time. You know what traffic, weather conditions are. I mean, truck stop's full. If the shipper's going to get you loaded in time or unloaded in time, and for you to be working on these hours, whereas you had the paper logs. If you sat in traffic in Chicago for 2 hours. But guess what? I went a whole whopping, 20 miles in that 2 hours. Well, I'm just going to mark it as if I was moving at 50 mile an hour. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you had all the time in the world you wanted. Whereas now it's the clock is ticking. Like I said, to me, it puts a lot of pressure on the truck drivers. I think that's unfair. And you guys get you have to take that mandatory break, which, to me, at 30 minutes is nothing. I mean, if sometimes I would pull over on the road years ago and, say before I got into Chicago or someplace that the traffic was, going to be heavy and bad during rush hour. Well, I'm not running. I'm going to, hang out at the truck stop for a while and let that traffic, all the rush hour, go away, and before I go driving again. And you guys can't do that nowadays. And once that clock starts ticking, you guys have to go. And to me, those are rules that the DOT and the FMCSA has to look into, because you got people running the industry who have never sat behind the wheel of a truck and don't get it. You have groups fighting for owner operators and small companies like OIDA and different organizations, and I don't know if sometimes they get it or not, but I don't know. I mean, from an owner operator standpoint, as yourself, or even as a small fleet owner or truck driver, I think it's the government telling you how to do your job. And to me, if you want to run paper log, you should be able to. If you want to run electronic logbooks, that should be your option. But to me, it should be optional. You shouldn't be forced to do it, as long as you're keeping a record of where you've been and where you're going and what you're hauling and so forth. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Exactly. I mean, the way I see it is kind of like unelected bureaucrats that have never driven a truck or held a CDL, and yet they're
Mm-hmm.
telling us what to do. That's my biggest problem. I saw I think it was a CDL Life article a while back, and they were covering that, how nobody on the board for the FMCSA had a CDL or any truck driving experience. And yet
Mm-hmm.
they're making the laws for us. Like, that's majorly messed up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. And to me, that's one of the biggest, there's them, like the bureaucrats, and telling us how to run our truck and run your business. And to me, you should have the option to run. If you want to run a paper log, you should be allowed to run the paper log. If you want to run the electronic logbook, you should be, or say, for example, you have X amount of trucks over so many, then you have to then your fleet gets forced into that electronic logbook. I don't know. There's ways to, I think, be more productive with this going forward, because to me, I think you're endangering the health of, we're getting into the politics of trucking here, and I get very vocal about this, but nobody ever seems to listen to me. So, except for you, Brittney, which is nice. Hey, we're on the air tonight. So, I think if trucks are in a hurry to get somewhere, people make mistakes and accidents can happen, and whether it's the driver at fault or somebody cutting somebody off because the truck driver's speeding or whatever, that's a big tattletale, right? That system's a whole big tattletale right there, and there's times when I was out of hours and I was running, and I'll admit it, and every driver before me, they did it, and I'm sure you did. You did paper logbooks. We all did it, but like, for example, you could be 30 minutes away. I couldn't imagine being 30 minutes from home and having to shut the truck down because I'm out of hours. You know what I mean? That to me doesn't make sense. I mean, I've heard of stories like that, and I don't know if that's true but I've heard of things like that, and what you're telling me about the 1 minute kind of backs that up. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Looks like we have another caller calling in. Let's see if they have an opinion on the logs. Logs are always a good topic. So I actually enjoy talking about them. Let's see who this is.
All right.
Hi, from
Danny, host Expediting line.
To accept
good.
this call,
Danny.
press 1. To send the call.
Danny, what's going on tonight?
What's up, Britt? What's going on? Mark, this is an interesting story to hear all about that history, BJ and the Bear and all that. I used to watch it as a kid myself.
Nice. I like hearing that, I'm glad that was my show when I was a kid, I mean, I was a little young for little too young for Moving On with Claude Akins and Sonny and Will and Sonny Pruitt, but BJ McKay, his Kenworth, man, I've been a Kenworth guy because of that show, and nothing prettier than an Aerodyne. So I'm glad I got another talking to another fan here, right?
It's so cool, and of course the Convoy movie, Chris Cross, whatever. I can't say his last name.
Chris Christopherson had rolled in a 1977 Mack. It's an RS 712 LST is the tractor model number and year. So. And a very cool truck, and actually that truck is still survive. Actually, there's two survivors. One, Dan Bruno, who used to own St. Louis dump trucks out of St. Louis, Missouri, found the trucks and actually did the whole history of the movie and went location. He restored the truck and found the original trailer. And then I believe Anthony Fox out of Atlanta. He's out of Georgia. He owns a fuel hauling company. I've spoke to him a couple of times about. Talking about the truck, and he actually owns it now. And a friend of his actually owns the Peterbilt from the Steven Spielberg movie Duel, which is pretty cool.
Oh, I love that movie.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted Brittney and Mark, the ELD. There's something that I do. I don't know if I'm going. Oh boy, here it goes. I'm going to get in trouble. I don't know.
That's right.
Here's the problem that 90% of the truckers have. When, for example, I had 9 hours and 50 minutes left. I had 2 drops, and I had to do a yard move. And when you go over 5 miles, even in the yard, on the consignee, bam, it starts. And that really screwed things up because I had another load backed up. And in addition to that, here's what I do. On a 30-minute break, if you have not used your PC yet, call personal conveyance.
Okay.
Hey, I want to say it. If I've been stopped with way stations about 4 or 5 times, if you type in safer parking on PC, personal conveyance, when you take your 30 minutes and you punch in PC, DOT don't have a problem with that. It gives you an hour extra you could drive with they're given 2 or 3 hours extra with this COVID stuff. Regulations limits a little bit, but that's what I do. So there you go.
That's interesting. And Danny, if I'm asking, how long have you been trucking?
I started driving actually in 2003. I started in Gibco County, the Class A of the coal company out of Indiana. My family.
You're Gibco, so you're down around southern Indiana right there. I know the Gibco truck.
My mother's family roots. I got like 200 years of family roots from Evansville, Indiana.
Yeah.
My dad's from Kentucky.
Okay.
But I started in the Class A, as I mentioned before.
Are you from down around that way, Kentucky and Indiana down there, Danny? Is that what you said you're from?
My dad's side is from Kentucky. Mom's side from Indiana.
Okay.
We moved to Florida when I was a little tyke. 4 years old. My dad was in the Coast Guard.
I don't blame you.
So, yeah, Daddy moved us down there. But it's very interesting about the E-log, and Brittney keeps talking about pressure. There's so much pressure on E-log, and that's the little trick I use. So
let me ask you this question. You mentioned the pressure. I'm curious. Do you feel though, like once you get loaded, or you pick up your loaded trailer wherever you haul or wherever you go, do you feel like under pressure though? I gotta go. I gotta get this many miles in today. I better be here at this point. I mean, do you feel like a certain amount of pressure underneath you though to I never drove. Yeah, okay, that's what I was wanting to say. Yes, so that's what I guess.
Sure.
And to me, I mean, you drove before. You were on paper logbooks. Now, did you? But you didn't. I mean, I'm guessing you probably didn't feel that kind of pressure because you could massage the logbook versus being tied to it now, right?
Exactly. And in addition, my line of work, I'm an expediter. We do a lot of automotive, and it's naturally pressurized as it is. I mean, it's all emergency freight. It's the pressure from the time we get the load offer until we deliver. But anyhow, yeah, it's definitely. Brittney mentioned about these people that are putting rules and regulations on us has no clue what in the world it takes to get through traffic, Atlanta, Dallas, and all that. You're talking about sometimes 2-hour downtime.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Going just to get through the traffic, and that eats at your clock. And, for example, I'm in L.A. now, and I had to pick up in Tennessee and go to California. Emergency airplane engine went out at the airport. So that's how I get around. I use the PC in addition to my 30-minute break. Now, if I haven't used my PC yet, personal conveyance yet, and after my 30-minute and I'm stuck in traffic, I will use it. And I will use it. And I'll put safer parking in there. And every time I got stopped at the weigh scales, no violations, no issues. So just to put that out there for people.
Nice. Well, hey, that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I've heard that whole personal conveyance thing before when I've been watching some read some different articles and I guess that's maybe a nice accessory to have with an electronic logbook. But to me, though, there needs to be some. And one of my problems is too, and maybe you feel this too, Danny, is when if you get 10 hours to go and say you're already tired in the morning, but I mean, you're just tired all day and you got to go. But then other times, you may feel great, and when you get done driving, you're like, hell, I'd go for another 500 miles.
Exactly.
But you can't. But you can't because of the stupid logbook. So, and to me, that's kind of one of the things is that everybody's different in their. Like I used to like to run at night, and I'm sure Brittney likes to run at different times of day and whatever, as do you. Is that everybody's different. So I mean, my clock runs differently than so. When I'm up and I'm working, then and when I'm tired, I go to bed. And to me, that's one thing also, whether it was a paper log or the electronic logbook, is that everybody's body's different. You know what I mean? So therefore, the amount of sleep I need or the time I need to rest, isn't the same. So I mean, that's a struggle right there. But at least you guys got some, talking about the personal conveyance. That gives you some room to move then at least.
You've got to, in addition, they have to move up the miles per hour to 15 because, for example, I'm in a semi-straight truck. I'll give you an example. And it's short, obviously, and all these things, 40 foot. And what I do at truck stops, I like to move into the corner spot to give the big rigs more spaces to park. Mm-hmm. So when I have to move from a spot on the other side of a truck stop and I go 5.6 and I'm like, dang, man, my clock just started. Come on. And I'm on a 10 or a 34 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, that's what that needs to definitely change. There's a guy out of Tennessee. He's running for Tennessee Senate. He works for Big G Express. He's been driving for 30 years. Aaron Pettigrew. He's running for office. And he is very knowledgeable. And some way, somehow, you get somebody that is a truck driver into some sort of government office as a start,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And his name is Aaron Pettigrew. He's extremely knowledgeable and very experienced. I talked to him maybe once or twice on a weekly basis just to try to, I don't know, he's going to be on a ballot this year. And, that, to me, I would say 99.9% of truckers would agree with me. That 5 mile an hour's got to go. That's just what I'm assuming.
Yes.
What do you think?
Well, I think there's room for improvement at all. It's just a matter of getting these. I'll agree with getting these. The leadership, be it your the states, or the House of Representatives or the Senate, to get them to listen to us. And the problem is that the American trucker doesn't have a voice, and you have other, and the ATA is, that's full of unions and everything. That's the yellows in the roadways and the other LTL union carriers OLED is the one that sticks up. I'm hearing good things about CDLF. I'm not, I've got Sadie was in, and Brittney here were kind enough to, tell me about it, and I got press kit from Sadie on it, and so been kind of exploring what they do, and and the problem is that, the trucking industry, 90% of the, I don't know whatever the percentages breakdown is, but you hear about all the big carriers, but the rest of it is, they move a good majority, but the 90% of the freight in this country is moved by owner-operators and small companies, It's not by the Snyders, it's not by the Werners, it's not by the, these giant freight carriers.
Thank you.
They just drive the freight rates down for the rest of us and ruin it,
Yes, sir.
So there's got to be something that can be done. I mean, there's a problem, there's always a solution. It's just a matter of how do you go about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. When I go through the weight scale, I can tell right off the bat if the DOT officer is a newbie and greenhorn, or he's been around the trucking industry for a while, because they act and they treat drivers differently, doing level 1, 2, and 3 inspections. And you got the younger generations just I'm sorry, some of them just don't have a clue.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I know the guys you're talking about. I remember one night I was rolling into Detroit, and I had was a horseless carriage, and I was full on Kentucky with a big 3-axle trailer, and I had 6 Ferraris on the trailer, and truck didn't weigh. I wasn't weighing. I was barely weighing probably 60,000 pounds. And I get pulled into the scale house, and I'm 75 going right north of Toledo, right there in Michigan, and that's like 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, oh man, this sucks. Like a DOT me or whatever. I come walking in, give my logbook and everything, and the DOT officer says to me, I don't want to see any of that. Well, what'd you pull me in here for? He says, how long was that trailer? And I said, 53-footer. He says, can you pick any of those axles up? And I said no. And he says, and because I didn't have a dump valve installed on my tractor yet to dump any of the 3 axles. I just got in this trailer, it's a brand new one, and I said, I can't pick it up, can't dump them, whatever. They're just down right now, and so, I got to write you a ticket for being not meeting the bridge law. And I said, you're meaning to tell me I weigh like 60,000 pounds, that you got trucks running around here weighing gross 150,000 pounds with 20 axles underneath them, and I don't meet your bridge law? He says, exactly, and I said, all right, whatever. So he wrote me a $150 ticket or whatever it was. I went on my way. I went up to Cali Ferrari, delivered there. I went over to Chicago, delivered there. I deadhead all the way back from Chicago back to our office in Jersey. And I got there, and I just was pretty angry about all this. So I just said, screw this, I want my little trailer back. Sure. So I pull into the yard. I unhook from this brand new trailer, hook it to my 53-footer, and I pull out and I remember Dave Sweetman was, I think Sweetman was in the yard. I think it was him or it was Petrus. One of the drivers was there, and he come on and says, Mark, what are you doing? I said, well, they got a brand new trailer right to us and brand new full on hydraulic. Why do you want me getting rid of that for? And I said, I used to run. I was a Midwestern guy. I tend to run all the Midwestern freight. Other guys went Florida, California, all the stuff. I tended to stick around Chicago, the Midwest, delivering all the science stuff. And I didn't mind that because I enjoyed that. So anyway, I said, well, you've been to Michigan with one? And he said, no. And I said, well, you can't go to Michigan with 3-axle because it doesn't meet their bridge law. He said, you're kidding me. And I said, no. And so you're hooking up to your old 132? I said, yep. And so he says, that trailer doesn't meet, that trailer breaks the law too. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, I said, well, it's 53-footer, 2-axle. I said, it's perfectly fine. He says, no, it isn't. He said he went on the truck and grabbed a tape measure and says, walk it off. And so this was the first 53-footer we got in the fleet with that they had put the big hydraulic gate on the back. And what the company forgot to do was when they got the trailer, they forgot to cut like 1.5 feet off it to account for the gate. So the trailer actually lengthened out at 54.5 feet. Even though it was marked 53 foot, nobody ever stopped me for it. Nobody ever measured it.
See that gate? See that? I got one on here too.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's definitely gotta. Those things there. Some of these, I mean, most of them are out doing a great job, but you get one that'll stop you because you're going 6 over 5 mile an hour through the weigh scale because he's in a bad mood, and you're not. It's stuff like that. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to touch on that ELD subject, so I'll let y'all get back to your show. And it's been wonderful, Brittney, and Got a good show. I love it.
Yeah, it's great to hear from
It's
you.
like a good guy here. We have to. What kind of expediter do you run there, Danny? What kind of truck is it?
It's a Freightliner Columbia 06 10-speed. It's an older one, but it's been pretty much refurbished. And I mentioned before, I'm thinking about trying to buy this from the owner, because if I buy it, I'm going to repaint the whole thing, except the rims, the truck, everything. I love expediting. I do a lot of automotive freight, emergency freight, like I mentioned before. It's basically when they call, get there and get it to point A to point B as safely and quickly as possible.
Well, stop by our website and drop me an email. I've never done an interview with an expediter, so maybe you could be the first if you're interested. So we'd love to talk to you. How's that sound?
Absolutely, sir. Mark, I'd love to, sir. That would be awesome.
I'll get
That'd
you
be
guys
great.
connected.
I'd love to show up your ride. So
I was gonna say I've got Danny's contact information too, so I'll get you guys in touch. That would be awesome.
My email is on my YouTube channel About section too, if you want that.
And you're expediting land on YouTube, right?
Expediting. The email is a different email. It's stanpw1972@gmail.com. So I got a very different kind of trucking channel, so everybody's getting used to it, I guess. But it's quite a different channel. Brittney's been very supportive of it, and again, I appreciate her so much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, she rocks, doesn't she? So
I love to have fun out here. I just say that. You check it out and see what you think.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for calling, Danny. It was good to talk to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Take care, Danny. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, situations like that with the trailer length and I think what irks me the most is just how picky DOT is on the smallest little issues. Like there's not, like you had mentioned, drivers have different sleep patterns. You know, with me, my minimum 6 hours. I have it down to a science. Unless I'm just, completely fatigued, then I might sleep for 12. And I've done that. But I think my record's 17 hours or something like that. But that was after like 120-hour work week. But typically it's 6 hours, 6 to 8. I know other drivers that only require 4 hours and they're good to go, and there's no room to work with them.
What's funny is, to me, if the truck wasn't moving, I wasn't making money. And, I would load and say, I was sitting at home for, the weekend or something, and I had to be in, Dallas, Texas next morning. It was only 900 miles from, Annapolis, or 950 miles or whatever, to Annapolis to Dallas. So, you get there in a day. Not legal, but you can do it. And you just go and you do it, I don't know. It's just the way, or or if I was going all the way, say, down to, Brownsville or whatever, and I, get in the middle of the night, I'm not tired. I'm just going to go. Ain't nobody out there, so just go and get there the next morning. And next thing you know, you roll the time over right there, and you can run the split sleeper berth, and you can run that 70, and you feel run with the 70 and the 5 or whatever it was. And it's been so long ago, I have to think about all this again. But you hurry it up right there. You could get extra load in for the week, and add another, if you're for a company driver, another $500, $600, $700 or more to your paycheck. You know what I mean? So that was, that was always kind of nice.
So it used to be 7.5 on the sleeper berth?
What's that?
Used to be 7.5 on the sleeper berth?
No, I was saying, I'd put like the 70 hours in or whatever in the 5 days or whatever, because I'd run the 15 hours or I forget how to do the split sleep. I forget how I used to run it. It's been so long ago I can't remember now. It's I haven't run a logbook now in 17 years. So
wow.
Yeah. That's last time I drove a truck was probably about 2003. So over the road full time. I get in some other friends' trucks and get in and drive them to this day. I just couldn't see more. I'm going, but which wouldn't be healthy. But you get in just you just get them and run them. But if I was run the fleet out of Annapolis, for example, and I'd run maybe one load once a month or something, or once every couple of weeks, depending on how busy we were. And I just run the logbook, and I'd get where I was going and back in the time was required. It wasn't wasn't having to get creative with the coloring book, per se, and to make it all work. So,
Definitely.
Definitely. So, yeah.
I've even done the 8-2 sleeper berth option on the e-logs.
Mm-hmm.
It is exhausting to me. I've never been able to work good on the 8-2. I'll come up the end of the day and I'm just so fatigued. But I've done it before. I've even done the rotating hours thing instead of a 34-hour reset. But once again, for me, every time I've tried to do that, also when I've tried to do that, the log has given me issues. Like when I should have picked up hours, I didn't. And it always ended up screwing me out of a load or something. So I finally told the company, I'm like, just give me a 34. I will just sleep.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it can be, that's the thing is I said, to me, it's, the trucker around, you guys are racing against the clock. And to me, that's not fair. I don't know. I just don't, I don't see how they find safety in that. I mean, with all this technology we have nowadays, I mean, when I was doing your interview and I was talking to you and Jennifer and Sadie, everybody, we're talking about your truck. And, I mean, the technology in your Volvo is pretty phenomenal. I mean, be it in Freightliners now or the Kenworths or whatever, all these over there are updates and the things they can do remotely to them. It's amazing, And we can come up with technology to do everything, but we can't figure out how to operate a logbook and do it, make it work for everybody. It's kind of crazy. To me, it seems like they thought about this and did it kind of, half-assed.
They did.
Excuse my French, but you had these big fleets like Werner stuff, tested them for years, running them, and if it works for them, great. But they forced it upon the little guys, and the little guys can't compete with, say, the Werner, because the Werners, for example, a big fleet like Werner or somebody they can keep their trucks, going across country in a chain, where the truck runs, say 5 hours one way and 5 hours back the other, or 4 hours or whatever, and they can drop and hook those trailers and get that trailer across the country. Whereas the little guy is hooked to that trailer the entire time going there, or that trailer for Werner is nonstop going across. Whereas the other guy's got to stop because the small guy's got to stop because he doesn't have that ability to have, 5,000 tractors. So
that's so true. Yeah, and I can see both sides. Like I've worked for small companies who were running things illegal as hell on those e-logs. Like it was so bad. I didn't even know this was a thing, but there's small companies that are driving their CSA score down through the grounds, and they'll start another company name, but it'll be the same company. They'll just put so many of their trucks under a different company name, have a totally different e-log system, and then they were calling us drivers saying, okay, you're maxed out on your 70 tonight, log in under this company name and keep rolling. And it's like, really? So, yeah, and we had drivers falling asleep at the wheel in construction zones. They were taking out, thankfully, nobody got killed. But I know we had drivers that fell asleep, took out a whole row of cones. I mean, that could have been construction workers. So I've seen the fatigue thing affect people, and that's what the e-logs are trying to protect against. But then at the same time, like you said,
the thing was, like when I was tired, I pulled over, went to sleep. Or took a rest or break or whatever. I mean, I like to run at night. I hated running, like say westbound in the evening where the sun was bearing down on you. That's when I would, usually pull over and stop, or I'd sleep. I like to sleep all day because I like to run at night because the truck would run cooler. You had less traffic to deal with, less DOT to deal with, and plus you look good going down the highway with all your chicken lights glowing. So, and that you got to be cool on your stool, right, when you're rolling. So,
you do.
But to me, when I was tired, I stopped, and I never would let the company force me to, to do something illegal in that regard. If it was my choice to, if I say, I can get another 200 miles, and I'm going to go, and I'd do it. If I wasn't tired, I'd run, and that's the difference. I mean, and maybe I wasn't the most compliance friendly. The compliance department didn't always like me in certain companies and whatever I worked at, but I remember I got into an argument with an operations manager at PGT, and it's a steel hauler, and if you heard steel hauler stories, a lot of it's true. And I'm not going to get into details on what I was doing, or essentially, but the dispatchers knew that I was one of the guys that could. I mean, the first week I was there, I put my truck in the top 10 revenue earners for the company. And everybody's like, who the hell's this guy? But then later on, the dispatchers got to know me. They knew that I would run, and they knew that I would run. They knew I would run because the load paid, or they could put whatever on me. They'll give to Harter. He'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. And I remember the operations manager ripping me a new one, and in his office one day, and I told him, I said, if you don't like it that I'm, not running legal, I said, with either this freight because it's either overweight or feels overweight, or I'm running out of hours or something. I said, tell your dispatchers to quit giving it to me. Don't put it on. Don't blame me. I said, they're the ones offering it up. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And that was part of the problem too. So it's not just the driver. It goes to other areas of the company as well. So.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've seen all of that. But nevertheless, you have 1 million safe miles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got
exactly.
it done.
Everybody's at the end of the day, everybody's smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Customer. I would say customer is always right. Make the customer happy. Everybody's happy.
There you go. Exactly. Well, it has been so nice to talk to you. Do you have anything else you want to add before we get off of here?
I don't know. Let's go do this again sometime. This has been fun. So,
Yes.
I don't do much on Saturday nights, so this is good.
Perfect. We were doing it Sunday nights, and we found that Saturday nights were a lot better
Saturday
for
nights,
everybody
yeah,
else.
So. Yeah, no, we'll have
So
to do this again sometime. We got to get you up to the show. I got to get you to some truck shows. You and I we're going to do some. We're going to go old school, and I'm going to take you out. We're going to get you in some old Peterbilts and Macs, and we're going to show you what real trucks look like.
Oh my God!
You're going to go, man. I can't imagine driving this thing after you've been in that Volvo, So.
I am all up for all of that. That would be amazing. I always try to ask this question before.
And we got to
get you.
And we got to get you up to. We'll see what's going on as well as COVID-19 stuff. I do a lot of work. I've been helping Chuck Kemner out with the National Association of Show Trucks and help put together the calendar the 25th anniversary calendar for him. We got to get your truck in there. I sent Sadie and you both the information on that.
I'll have to dig it up.
We got to get you up to St. Ignace for the Richard Kramer Memorial Truck Show. It's one of the best shows in the country. Some of the biggest and best show trucks show up there. It's a lot of fun. And we'll get your pink Volvo stand out in a field. We'll definitely stand out in a field of Peterbilts. So
that would be awesome. I would absolutely love that. So, quick question. I'm starting this new thing where I ask this. I got it from Larry King Live. So, if you were to give one piece of advice to the world or to those listening from your experience in life, what would that be? What would that piece of advice be?
My piece of advice?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh. Well, you're quoting Larry King. I think I'd have to quote Rodney Dangerfield. And what did he say in the movie Back to School? Look out for number one, but don't step in number two.
That is awesome. So true.
He said something like at the end of the movie when he's giving the commitment speech. But, I don't know. I mean, advice, I don't know. I said just be yourself, live your life. That's, I just do what I try to treat everybody with respect and I've been on top of the world. I've hit rock bottom and, you got nowhere to go but up. So, be blessed with what you have in life. And, we live in the United States of America. It's a free country and you're given the God-given liberty that, our founders gave us. And you can make it or break it in this country. You know what I mean? And to me, that's, being a truck driver is all about that. I mean, we get to see things and go places, and that's the one thing I miss the most. I mean, you and I talked about it. I get asked this question a lot. Is when my former fiance left me years ago after my accident, they said, "What would you have done if you had your eyesight, Mark?" And honestly, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. I probably would have went down to the Kenworth dealership and bought another truck and you and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Or maybe we would, but in different circumstances. And I'd be perfectly happy. I mean, I was never happier when I was behind the wheel. And you got to find your personal happiness in life, whether it's hosting this radio show or you're rolling down the highway in your pink Volvo or, your red Kenworth or your blue Mac or whatever it is, or you're behind the desk, you're splitting atoms. Doesn't matter. You're happy doing that. Everybody's got a call in their life, so...
That is so true. Well, thank you so much for joining tonight, Mark. I'll be in touch with you. Trust me.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome. So looking forward to it again, and looking forward to doing some stuff in the future as well. And I'll definitely be tuning in again here and to the show. So
awesome. Be safe out there. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks, Brittney.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Trucker Talk Live with Brittney Richardson. Be sure to follow her at American Truckers on YouTube and Brittney and Pink on Facebook. Until next time, be safe out there and keep it between the lines.